Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to wherever you are in the world. Welcome to RCI Mondays. Time for another single make car championship, and this time something new with the Ginetta Cup. And continuing with the new theme, this will also be alternating weeks of a 60-minute race with a mandatory pit stop versus two 30-minute races with, of course, no pit stop. Tonight, we are bringing you round two from a mixed race Zolder. I'm your lead commentator for tonight, John Dalton, and back alongside me is Ryan the multitasker Mawson, with him also behind the cameras. So Ryan is going to be very, very busy tonight. And of course, a big hello to all our live stewards in the box. Welcome.
Yes, thank you, John. What a shaping up to be another great day for this single make race at Zolder. We saw at Kyle Army how crazy these cars really can be when you put everyone in the same machinery, in the same class. No one has an advantage. The Kyle Army, which is a track that sometimes gets a little bit spaced out, had some absolutely fantastic racing. We're at a much smaller circuit with those massive chicanes to really conquer this time. It's going to be definitely an interesting race, and some new faces as well have come from round one.
Yeah, certainly so. This man here on your screen, Mikael Sundström, fresh from the Motorsport Games, the FIA event that was run last weekend at Paul Ricard, representing, of course, his home nation of Sweden, had signed out for round one due to commitments with the FIA Motorsport Games. But Mikael here, regular RCI, is back and ready to fight for this championship. So he has, of course, already taken his drop round, currently resides P12 in practice, although we know, Ryan, that mixed strategies in practice can become a thing. So you might see the guys at the top end of the field bashing in their qualifying laps already, but the likes of Wolf, Andy Boardman, Sundström, Hagstrom, Vigershu could be on their race fuel, just getting a kind of feel for the game. And then as soon as the session switches to the qualifying, they're going to come out the gates like a scolded cat and really drill in those fast laps.
Well, especially when you've been away, you've been doing other things, practicing other cars, the GT3 cars, heads and tails different to a GT4. And not only that, but the Ginetta is then different to any other GT4 car really in the field. It is such an interesting little car to drive. And as Mikael races up to the line, that will be his final practice lap as we will get started on the quali session. And looking out the window, still nice and dry. There was a threat of rain this race. It was they kind of forecast it, but nothing was at least at the minute to be had. And also, as we flick back to the screens, I'm sure you'll like this livery, John. Look who's out in third in the train.
Yeah, certainly so. Mr. Phil Roberts himself with we were told last time, Ryan, we were a bit confused at what bird Phil had chosen for his car, and we were told it was indeed a parakeet, or as I'm going to go with, a parrot-yeet when we see Phil chucking this car over the curbs. And of course, his teammate in the sister car, the lovely Ted Edwards from RCI, also has a little surprise up his sleeve tonight in the form of his livery. So eager eyes on the screen might be able to spot that, but we'll have a look later. But this buzzy train of Ginetta's heading down towards the latter half of the circuit, towards the Gilles Villeneuve chicane, headed up by Dario Barzaghi, who had an absolute miserable round one at Kyle Army, got tangled up in an incident between turns 4 and 5, was the collateral damage of a fellow driver's mistake, unfortunately, and then driven down the grid from there. So Dario, again, another driver who is going to be kind of, eager to get the championship going, probably going to treat Kyle Army as his drop round, as his Sundström. So these two could be duking it out to the final rounds indeed. As the train heads up to the last corner, Ryan, I'm going to leave this lap to your lovely self.
Well, as we ride on board with the Bolus Esports Ginetta, now it actually has a livery that we can talk about as well. Last week, still managed to got the vinyl people out to wrap this car, but coming down into turn one, it's a very, very strange turn one at Zolder. You basically, the apex is blocked by that wall for the longest time, and then finally it opens up for you not to run too wide in the Ginettas. You've really got to keep it under control. This corner, you can see the understeer start to set in. That is very much a GT4 sort of characteristic, as you will, long run out. And then this corner onto the back straight, probably one of the most the most important corners to get right on this circuit. The run down to the first chicane is so long. You can tap that gravel on the outside and you lose so much speed. You can be into an attacking zone here. This is the first chicane. Dario electing to take a little bit of the first curb, avoid the second one, which is monstrous in these cars. We've seen a few people fly over them in practice. Probably isn't quite the fastest way. Second chicane, bit of a sort of an alternate and entirely separate from the first chicane, as you see Dario throwing the car in. It actually dips down there rather than up, so it's literally the polar opposite. Still a valid lap time, which shows you how much track limits here you can get away with, and there is a fine line, but obviously these drivers are all going to find it. Final hairpin turn, you've got to be very, very careful on the power. You can easily spin up the wheels, and once again, that'll compromise your run out onto this straight. Find yourself once again in the attacking zone. Under the gantry, hard on the brakes, and take as much as the anti-cut as the car will allow without unsettling it. You can see the slight bump there. Dario Barzaghi will race up to the line. It's a very, very short lap, but a very technical lap. At a 1:37.8 is the time to beat right out of the gate, which Phil Roberts has beaten briefly, then followed by Benjamin Heilman.
Yeah, I'm sure Dario's got a lot more in the tank of that Ginetta, but these guys drilling in the lap times. Nobody wants to kind of sacrifice any track time they can get. Obviously, GT4 cars, those of you that do not play ACC, of course, do not have tyre warmers from the pit lane, so the tyres start stone cold, which is, of course, very crucial to get heat in the tyres, get pressure in the tyres. So what you want to be doing is kind of fueling the car for the whole session, and then obviously just going out, drilling in the laps as hard as you can, generating all the tyre temperature and all the pressures. So you're going to start seeing the fastest laps kind of come in towards the latter half of this session. So take the opening laps as you will, but Wolf Matuszka up into provisional P2 already. Last time out, of course, we saw Christoph Verstappen duking it out with Wolf Matuszka, who eventually prevailed to take the lead with a superb mandatory pit stop. We also saw some very early chaotic signs in turns 4 and 5, which obviously took out a majority of the field. So expect some names to be towards the top of the grid today, Ryan, that maybe we didn't quite see out last time. This man here, Daniel Jim, a new name in the 71. Andy Boardman there, I believe, retires back to the pit lane to possibly take a new set of boots. But Daniel Jim, been watching him in practice, Ryan. He does seem to be up there with, with the fastest guys. So again, a driver to be keeping your eye on for sure.
Yeah, very much so. And just because that they weren't at round one doesn't mean that they can't do some serious damage in this season. Obviously, you do have one drop rounds, meaning that, okay, they're on the back foot a little bit. They've already had their bad rounds, in air quotation marks, taken care of. But if you've got the pace, you can still do some big damage. A big improvement coming to the line, and it will jump Daniel Jim to P6. But I think that actually, it was an invalid lap. So you can see the last was a 36.7. Did not count, but that means that the 71 definitely has got some pace under it.
Yeah, a lot of track limits here, Ryan, as we said on the opening lap with Dario Barzaghi. You've got turn 1, you can run too wide, cut too much of the inside. 2 and 3, not so much. Turn 4 again, dip a wheel over the curb into the gravel, that's a cut. Too much curb at the chicane, again, another cut. And then turn 6, can't really cut it. Turn 7 again, very easy to get the wrong side of the anti-cuts. Turn 8, not so much so with the grass and the gravel on the outside. And then, of course, the kind of final chicane being the next one you've really got to watch. So these guys in 30 minutes, I'm not sure if we're going to be seeing a lot of drive-throughs for track limits this time. Hopefully not. Hopefully these guys can keep it clean. But this man here, Christoph Verstappen, navigates through the Gilles Villeneuve chicane towards the latter half of the lap, looking down to the timing boards. Looking like a slight improvement here. Time tumbling away. Must have had a bad exit out of turn 8 and into 9 and 10. He navigates the tightest corner on the circuit. Big braking zone, got to slow a lot of speed down, get a nice tight apex, and get a nice smooth run. Quite a long run down to the last chicane of turn 10, named famously after Jackie Ickx. Getting the braking point nailed, slowing up. Got a slower car ahead, I believe, the virtual drivers. TX3, Maximilian Verde ahead in the 89. Verstappen runs to the line, provisional P3. Can he see an improvement here? And he doesn't. No, it doesn't beat anywhere near his time with a 1:36. Best time 1:37.3 last time out. So again, maybe Christoph is finding some heat in these tyres, finding some pressures that kind of suit him, and maybe we're going to see him jump up to the front row of the grid.
Yeah, and that's the thing with the Ginettas. You've kind of got to work them in slowly, but then getting that pace out, you really have to throw these cars. And I mean, you know, a lot of people say you have to do that with any car, but the Ginetta, you really have to push it because you don't really have the speed, you know, that some of the other cars have. What you do have is fantastic handling and fantastic brakes, and that is your entire trick in a Ginetta. If you can you know, have a few kilometers an hour more corner speed than the person in front of you, that's where the time is. That's why it all starts to bunch up as people slowly sort these times out. Oliver Hagstrom Viggersjö, one of those examples, jumps up into P4, starting to get very close to the front. And also the other battle that we can't really discount is looking to the back of the split 2 or the silver drivers. Nat Shirley, I thought that this driver had quite a lead out, you know, in the start of the qualifying session, but have you noticed the 81 of Burka slowly closing in?
Yeah, Shirley and Broiker, they're definitely starting to kind of get together. They've got one pro driver separating them. For those new to RCI broadcasting, of course, anybody with a white background behind their number is what we class as a pro driver. Anybody with a grey/silver background to their number, we class as a silver driver. So the top 40 of qualifying have made it into split 1, the top 20 being denoted to pro, and the bottom 20 being denoted to silver. Wolf Matuszka there on P2 provisionally, jumps back to the pits, possibly for a new set of Pirellis. Maximilian Verde in the 89, again another driver with a strong performance out at Kyalami. And obviously with 40 drivers signed up, that's 40, and 36 making the qualifying tonight. It's a very packed grid. But some sad news for those eagle-eyed viewers that can't spot Jordan Daly anywhere in the top 25. We've been given some news tonight that unfortunately a pedal box failure in real life has unfortunately hampered his championship hopes here at RCI. He's signed out from the Ginetta Cup and any other championships he was associated with. So anybody wondering where Jordan Daly is, Sundstrom there, very wide indeed in turn 1. That's what I was talking about, Ryan. Running a little bit too much green curb, and then you dip a wheel in the grass, and then before you know it, you're kind of hitting track limits and in the gravel.
And it's easy as well. Once you kind of ramp up onto that curb, you know, you lose a little bit of control from the Ginetta. Once you've touched the gravel, that's it. You'll just be pulled off into it, and that will completely take out your lap time as Nat Shirley throws the car over the first chicane. We can almost see the underside of that Ginetta, and that's kind of that second part of the chicane that I was mentioning. It is very vicious to these little cars, even with the ride height that they have. I was talking to some of the drivers, particularly Jan Yo, you know, before, which we can see in the background there. The ride heights on these cars, they were talking about putting it up to over 100 mil, which in a GT3 car would just be ludicrous. You wouldn't ever, you know, have a ride height that high, but the little Ginettas, that even with that ride height, they will catch the splitter and you will be sent into orbit. And it is getting very close now in the split 2 category. There's no pro drivers between them now. Everyone's bunched up.
Yeah, very close indeed. Top 10, of course, all now dominated by the pro cars. Nat Shirley just outside in P11, although this lap not probably going to be anywhere near with the big jump through the chicane. Benjamin Heilmann, a man we normally hear of behind the cameras, has of course entered into the Monday Night Championship in the 796 wrong side team named car. Not sure the wrong side of what, maybe the wrong side of track limits, who knows, as he navigates through the last chicane and takes a run to the line. Currently resides in P8. Will we see an improvement? We do. Benjamin Heilmann jumps himself up onto the front row of the grid. Provisional P2 now from our very own staff member here at RCI. Going to be keen to see if anybody can come near that time. Very close to Wolf's time indeed, but if there's a man that can, it is certainly Christoph Verstrapen here in the number 7. Very affluently kind of Dealball's Art kind of themed livery, I think, there with the dark green and gold. Not sure how the bright green wheels kind of fit into the DTM era, but here we are. Currently resides in P5. Great run looking through the last chicane. Somebody kicking up a little bit of dust ahead. Hopefully won't hamper Christoph's run to the line, and he does cross the line, jumps himself up into P3. Not too far behind Benjamin Heilmann and not too far behind the 373. We're still just under 3 minutes, just over, sorry, 3 minutes of qualifying to go. Drivers certainly looking to make an improvement, Ryan.
And the other thing about you know, Christoph is that we saw that great burst of speed at the start of the race at Kyle Army. So even if Christoph qualifies in that P3 spot, you've really got to watch your mirrors, because he could be a very early charger. Adam Dubiel has kind of been in the background, another driver that we often see, jumps himself up just outside of that top 10 spot as it is, but it's still got at least 2 more laps left to run. A couple of people diving down into the pits, possibly for a last minute little bit of a change and get up, try and knock the pressures up a little bit and go out for one more go. Christopher Streppen was one of those cars who immediately dived down the pits after setting that great time. And looking on the timing board, you get this part now where a lot of people have kind of stalled out with the Delta, because it's just getting to the limits of the drivers. Some people who still have some time left to give are sadly invalidated, like this man here, but Dario will get at least 2 more goes. In fact, no, he will only get 1 more go, because I can't read time, John Dalton.
Time is a very hard thing to read. We did find out this evening that we thought we were running late due to the clocks changing in the UK. We found out tonight that YouTube does not change your pre-scheduled broadcasts in accordance with UK time. So a bit of a panic between myself and Ryan on when we were going live, but thankfully we are very professional here and managed to get the situation under control. But this man here, Jose Jimenez, I do say indeed, fingers crossed, we're professional here, Ryan, remember. This man here, Jose Jimenez, in the 1-2-2, excellent show out at Kyle Army last time, runs a little bit wide out of the last chicane, kicking up a little bit of a dust, trying to straight line to the finish, and he does improve up into P6, and he does have another stab at the apple, as you say. Wolf Matuszka, P4, currently no improvement as he crosses the line, but again, he will get another stab with just over a minute of qualifying to go. Still a big train of cars coming down the start straight as we see the Polish man improve the number 373 up into pole position, and by a very large margin as well. Although it's only 0.313 in a Ginetta run, I think you know as well as I do that is a big chunk of time to try and find a short circuit like Zolder.
Yeah, that has kind of been the the gauntlet thrown down, and the time to beat. Marius actually has found a little bit more time through the coming through sector 1 out into the back straight. His time almost had a 2/10 gain on the Delta once again, which would just be a monumental increase this late on. Like I said, a couple of the cars diving out, and we've had chaos ahead, and that has ended up, the 373 has been caught up on it. That was Jan Yao, and actually was I can't think of the yellow car was it Matthew Kingston Lee? Drama at the first chicane in qualifying.
Yeah, I believe it was Matthew Kingston Lee indeed. Famous kind of big yellow taxi livery, I like to call it. Very similar to the New York cabs you get over in America. But this man here, Benjamin Heilman, is really the only driver, I believe, on a lap at the moment that's looking like it could be a small improvement through sector 1. Delta is up, got to keep it clean through the chicane. Big jump over the curbs. This is the thing here, Ryan. You've got to either take a tiny bit of curb and kind of scrub a little bit of speed, or kind of go all out and just send it over the curbs and pray the car lands in a way that keeps you happy. Wolf Matuszka looking to improve from P6, crosses the line, and he does so up into P3. And Adam Dubiel behind as well, sneaking into P4, possibly making use of Wolf Matuszka's slipstream. But Albin Manson, a driver we saw a lot at round 1 with a great showing, and the Hungarian here in the 37, looking at a possible improvement as he comes around the hairpin, keeps it very clean indeed, kind of loses a tiny bit on exit, and his Delta is going down and down as he heads towards the final chicane. Car ahead, Albin Manson will not affect him. Brakes for the final chicane, got to keep it very clean over the anti-cuts, not too much but not too little bit of opposite lock. Albin Manson, I believe, off to the driver's left in the wall, green flag wave, straight line to the finish, and he does improve up into P25. A couple of drivers left to finish their lap. Nat Shirley still on a valid lap coming down to the first chicane. Here we go, over one curb, over another, very smooth way of taking the curb, and Nat Shirley is not on a valid lap, so that does end qualifying.
Well, that was that. Some really incredibly fast time.
Certainly some very close standings indeed there, Ryan. And just reading the chat, seems like we might have a few technical difficulties with the server at the moment. Although tonight is a 30-minute sprint with no pit stop, I believe some drivers are seeing a mandatory pit stop on their HUD. So drivers just talking between admins, just trying to figure out what we are doing. So bear with us while we do so. However, I will give you, while we wait, a rundown of this week at RCI. Of course, Monday, as we know, we have the Ginettas. Tuesday, we find ourselves still with an empty slot due to the APAC Pacific Cup finishing. Wednesday sees our weeknight team championship. Find yourself a car, a friend, and sign up for 80 minutes of close racing in the GT3 class, with round 4 continuing at Mount Panorama. Team URL lead pro with ForzaItalia.pl hot on their heels, and another close fight in silver between Race Ventura and Garazzi Ragazzi Racing. Thursday is a multi-class race, season 10, mixing GT4 cars minus the Cayman, and instead bringing in a Porsche Cup car. Continues their tour to Misano for their final round. Christoph Verstappen dominantly leads GT4 Silver, Rudy Filmolter in GT4 Am, with Neil Pimlott hot on his heels, and none other than Andy Boardman still dominating the Porsche Cup class. Friday, of course, follows Thursday, and so does the championship, finding ourselves in Monza. Jaroslav Honzik leads GT3 Pro, followed closely by Foch and Valentin Barrier as their fight continues. Salva has unfortunately dropped to 4th overall in the championship. And of course, Night Owl has, of course, wrapped up last week with their final at Paul Ricard, with Volkan Bakadan sealing pro honours from Dario Barzalgi and Timothy Flamger, and Neil Pimlott taking silver honours from Lucas Bilski and Pavel Galinski. Some steward decisions still to sign off on the championship, but provisionally those are your standings. And of course, our new event sign-ups are open for the Bathurst 12 hour happening on November 26th. GT3 cars at the famous mountain. Need we say more? Grab yourself a couple of friends, pick a car, and prepare yourself for 12 hours of awesome racing.
Well, as we had technical difficulties in the server, we also had technical difficulties in the box. It turns out that through all that standings, someone unplugged my microphone, whose pressed on me wires. But those are the standings, and I can tell you it was absolutely riveting. John Dalton can approve for how we had, it was a grand gesture about all the drivers, and it was great, wasn't it, John? Exactly. So
lots of points scored by lots of different men.
Lots of points. Brian. Very close, and it's going to be a fantastic race. And as he says, as we wait for everything to reset, what we can tell you, looking at a lot of these points champs, is that no one is really too far out of it. Even if they, a lot of these 0 point scorers are new people to this league, meaning that they still have, a good shot at it. They've had their one drop round, but that doesn't mean you're out of it. They're the ones that are actually a little bit scary sometimes as a driver, because you don't think they're anywhere in the championship right up until you remember that you're going to be dropping, up to 30 points, 30 plus points if you've had a really good race, or you've had consistently good races all season. Then it becomes a little bit of a worry when you realize that there are only 26 points behind you.
Yeah, it does keep it interesting having the drop round. Like you say, Ryan, if you have a bad round, such as, Dario Barzaghi did at round 1, Kyle Lamy, or Mikael Sundstrom with other engagements for the FIA Motorsport Games representing, obviously, Sweden, you can still kind of come back and still lodge an attempt at a championship run. You don't have to attend all 6 rounds. You can attend 5 and still do a pretty darn good job at it. As we still resolve our technical difficulties, I will be giving you a rundown of the Ginetta calendar this year. Of course, we head over to Zolder for tonight's race, and following next Monday, we have a 1-hour race at Mount Panorama. Now, those of you that have ever raced the Ginetta at any kind of track with any kind of straight on it will know the gearbox is notoriously short. So it's going to be a very buzzy rev limiter bashing action down the Conrod Straight all the way down to the bottom of the hill. So keep your eyes peeled for that. November 14th, we jet all the way back to England for Snetterton with another 30-minute format race. Again, Snetterton are typically a very kind of touring car-esque track. Going to be, super, super interesting to see how these guys end up faring there. And then, of course, from England, we find ourselves back over to the Oceanic region for Suzuka with another 1 hour event on November 21st before a short hop to the USA for the finale round 6. Oh, no, sorry, not the finale at round 6. I beg your pardon. At Watkins Glen for another 2 race format on November 28th, which again, with a lot of straights at Watkins Glen, we could see slipstreaming being a really big part down to the first chicane. It's going to be very interesting seeing these cars up and over the first couple of turns. And then round 7 will be your finale at Donington Park on December 5th, with obviously another that'll be a 1 hour sprint race at Donington Park. And the format is going to keep things interesting. We're going to have the 1 hour races where drivers such as, Wolf Matuszko can kind of settle into a rhythm and think, I've got an hour to do this. I've got a pit stop. I'm notoriously good in the pits. I've got this. Versus the 30-minute races where you don't really have a lot of time to think. By the time your tires are in that window, you've really got to get a move on. You've really got to get past the guy ahead for championship points. And of course, if you've got, two pros slap between a silver, you're going to be kind of thinking, I need to get past the silver guy. And the silver guy has no obligation to move at all. Although he could be an obstacle between your man ahead and your man behind. And I'm just looking down the grid. Bart Matcher, Ryan, in P7. Silver driver separates Dario Barzaghi and Maximilian Vedi. This is exactly what I'm talking about. Is Vedi going to be able to get past Matcher to then chase onto Barzaghi? Or is he going to kind of bide his time and hope, Bart Matcher can kind of tow him up to the back of Barzaghi? But that's what these 30-minute races are all about. We're going to see how much action we can get crammed in to 30 minutes of racing.
Very much so. And also, you talked about Bathurst a little bit, and one event that we would like to catch on while we still wait for the servers to reset and pull all the qualifying results so everyone's on the right place on the grid on November 26th. If you like endurance racing and you like, Bathurst, as some people call it, bathtub, the Bathurst 12-hour here at RCI is going to be held on November 26th. The sign-ups are still open up until that day. You can have a team of all the way up to 6 drivers, but a minimum of 2 are required. And, you can come and do the pre-qualification for that. The big endurance races at Bathurst always seem to be, we see some great racing and we see some really, really talented drivers. I mean, I remember the first RCI 12-hour that I did many, many moons ago, eons ago, was when we had Orion Racing, and they almost lapped the field the first go, and we said it to them. We says, well, you didn't quite do it, lads. So then what they did is next year they lapped us by 1.5 laps, and almost kind of says, is that good enough? But it's going to be a great race at Bathurst, especially as he says, the long endurances. Some big names already signed up and pre-qualified. So keep your eye on that and keep your eye out for the RCI 12 hours of Bathurst.
Yeah, going to be a great event. Mount Panorama, like you say, Ryan, always proves to be a good home of racing. You've got a lot of twisty technical corners, a lot of elevation changes, and of course, a lot of places to make mistakes. So unless you have a perfect run of 12 hours, expect to see a lot of shuffling up and down the grid. And of course, you can sign up, as Ryan says, by heading over to our website, racerci.com, and get yourself signed up and pre-qualified with your team. And while we got a little bit of filler, I'm going to sneak a message from our partners in today. AK Informatica, of course, for providing our high-end server solutions at RCI. However, they also do provide hardware, peripherals, and accessories, including sim gear. So if you are in their target market and they do deliver to you, be sure to check them out. Driver61.com. You can, of course, get 25% off your driver coaching by using our discount code. You'll find a link in the description below, and head on over to driver61.com. And of course, lastly but not least, Fanatec, your one-stop shop for all the best sim racing equipment on the market. You can, of course, use our affiliate link in the description, and it won't cost you a single penny, but it does help us slightly with the running costs here at RCI. Of course, a very big operation we do run, so any small help is appreciated. Even if you're hanging out on the stream today and you've not hung out here before, welcome. Hopefully we see you in a few more races. We do this for the love of the community, and so some drivers do get some recognition for their efforts. And I'm going to pose you a question, Ryan, from Phil Roberts. What is the best starter Pokemon? He has said in the Ginetta chat.
Is it? Are we? This is when we need Pokemon themed liveries, and then we can pick our starter. Interesting fact: I never actually played Pokemon when I was younger. Never had it. I had a Game Boy. I had all of that, but I was a Crash Bandicoot fan. I was just mad on Crash Bandicoot, and that's all I really played. And then obviously anything car related, and even just anything through that. All my friends had it. So many people in my school were into it. Just never caught me the same way. I guess if I had to actually take a stab, it's Charizard, mainly because he's a little fire dude. It's like, yeah,
a little fiery dinosaur.
Yeah. That's kind of more my style. But yeah, never played the game. And now watch the YouTube chat is erupting in rage that there's a person in the world who didn't play that as their childhood. But yeah, I just used to play Crash Bandicoot all the time.
How dare this man not play Pokemon indeed. I think Pokemon Ruby was my first tackle at an official Pokemon game on Game Boy Advanced SP. So however old you are, whether you remember the Advanced SP.
Did you have a special color SP? I had a red one.
I had a like a purpley blue one. I have no idea if it was a special color or not. I just remember having it. I think I've still got it somewhere in a drawer.
I think I've probably still got mine in a drawer, along with a lot of old tech in a drawer that is kind of been left there to die almost. I was clearing out a lot of the drawers a few days ago, and I found an old iPod, like an actual big chunky brick iPod, and surprisingly enough, it did still work. Kind of. It works if you have it plugged in. Otherwise, nah. Get it?
Classic iPods, technology, and everything in between. As the server, I'm being told, Ryan, is up and ready with some drivers heading out the pit lane again to get a feel. Hopefully qualification results have been imported over from previous server to the new one, and we can certainly shortly get underway with enough waffle between myself and Ryan. I think we're about ready for the grid, Ryan. I don't know about yourself.
We're almost about. We've got all of the blinking lights over here, John. I'm just trying to silence some of the blinking lights. You see, some of these you like what Stewie gives me the rundown. Some of these you just ignore, and some of them I put tape over them. We might need to get some more tape in a moment just to quell some of the blinky lights. But yeah, we will get back to live pictures very shortly with the Ginetta Cup.
I'm sure I can run down to somebody's garage down beneath us and hopefully find some gaffer tape. Maybe we can find some coloured tape.
Can I have a blue one? I'd like some blue here. Black is just, we've got plenty of black tape earlier. We need some colour. Or maybe we need some like bright luminous ones.
I'll pop down to the RPMS boys and see if they've got any coloured turquoisey gaffer tape.
Wolf Matushka must have pink tape. How would you
He's got to have pink tape.
How would you fix the car afterwards if you've had some door to door? You need the coloured tape so your livery matches.
Yeah, there's certainly got to be some kind of coloured gaffer tape in the pit somewhere. I remember famously watching, I think it was a Nürburgring 24 or maybe even a VLN event where Falcon had reels of green and blue matching gaffer tape to the car. I think by the end, one of the Porsche's front end was mainly tape and a few patches across the rear end. So we do need a lot more coloured tape in racing. I feel, Ryan. I feel like it has a place, it has a market. I'm gonna certainly start maybe a side hustle in coloured race car tape.
Well, I mean, I've been to the Oldtimer Grand Prix plenty of times and seen, really, really old school race cars that were 90% tape on one side because they've had quite a shunt. But if it passes tech inspection, then it is legal to run.
Is it FIA approved tape?
I don't even know who deals with the Oldtimer Grand Prix. I think it's one of
ADAC, I believe.
No, it's one of the German insurance companies. I can't remember.
Zurich, possibly.
Possible, might be. It's one of those. It slipped my mind. But what we can confirm for you is, ladies and gentlemen, we have Ginetta's again.
We're back on the pictures, and of course
we have Ginettas.
Katrina Scott in the chat, of course, bigging up the back end people here at RCI for sorting these things out. I feel like we don't give enough mention. Obviously, RCI has a lot of support staff in and around the area. Some of them you don't see and you don't even know kind of exist. And then others such as, myself, Ryan, Jesse Lee, Phil Roberts, all the commentators that you hear kind of on the broadcasts, race in, race out, kind of begin to learn us. And this man here, Ted Edwards, jumping over the curb in his Ginetta, of course, has a very special Halloween livery. We've not shown much of this on the broadcast so far. And Ted in the 195, of course, last time out, we noticed he had a pigeon on his car. And those of you that are a little bit more eager-eyed might notice that the pigeon has some spooky Halloween gear. I don't want to assume the gender of the pigeon, so I'm just going to refer to the pigeon as pigeon. But the pigeon does have a little witch's broom and a little spooky witch's hat on the side door. We'll get a closer look, hopefully, on the grid walk. But a big shout out to Katrina Scott, who is Ted's partner, shall we say, in life. She has made a few liveries up and down the RCI grid, is always in the chat here at RCI TV, and we do appreciate you very much, Katrina. So here is your slight shout out on the broadcast from myself, John Dalton, and of course Ryan Mawson on the cameras to capture the car. And this man here, Nicholas Nordquist, Sim Brothers Racing, again another driver to be keeping an eye on. Can pack certainly a lot of damage. We've seen Nicholas be very competitive indeed last time out at the Asia Masters and British Masters Championships. Again, one driver to keep an eye on. But cars now pinging to the grid, Ryan, which can only mean one thing. You get yourself down on the grid with your little camera, and we have some fancy look at some liveries. We've got a few new ones in the field, as we mentioned earlier. Dario Barzaghi has a Barlas Esports livery now. Officially, last time out was just a coloured car. And of course, we want to take a closer look at that pigeon, as Ferox says in the chat. Catch that pigeon, for those of you that are kind of old enough to remember that cartoon.
I was briefly going to say that. You beat me to it. I was just about to try and snigger like this Dig Dastardly, but I don't think I have the lung condition to do that.
As we head down to the grid, we see a few, of course, standard in-game liveries. The blue, chrome, and green car is your pole sitter. Benjamin Howman in P2. I think he's chosen a random number generator livery, as I like to call those, where the colours are very outlandish.
It's almost Mike Jones. It's almost Mike Jones approved. Very, very brash, but it's not got enough purple, I don't think, to be very Mike Jones-esque.
Definitely needs more purple to be a bit more Mike Jones-esque. And of course, the iconic pink performance car of Wolf Matushka. Again, see him all the time here at RCI. Just keep an eye out for a pink car, and chances are it's going to be him. Adam Dubil on the left-hand side in the Forza Italia colours. Always white, green, and red for him. Kind of Dubil's art kind of theme, I like to say, with this one, Brian. A little bit of green, a little bit of gold, and then some bright green wheels.
Well, it's very Christoph Verstappen. I think a lot of cars that I run in seem to be this kind of livery. You know, it's one of the more defining traits of him. The Ballas Esports car of Dario Barzaghi now has featured the very typical Ballas Esports style, but shrunken down a little bit and put on one of the Ginettas. I have to say, I think it looks very good, but maybe that's just because I'm quite a fan of blue and purple.
Yeah, certainly an iconic colour kind of scheme. Really like to see the Ballas Esports cars in various guises. Usually used to seeing that on a Porsche, but yeah, like you say, Ryan, shrunken down onto a Ginetta. And then we see kind of Bart Matcher there with Maximilian Verde for the Virtual Drivers TX3. And of course, our favourite cursed livery driver, Jan Yo, in the number 48. Giant pair of eyes on the bonnet, giant pair of red lips around the mouth grille. And that is something I do not want to be seeing in my mirrors. I think Jan, of course, started the Halloween theme a little bit early at round 1 with that livery. Andy Boardman on the right in the 69 car. Again, a very famous driver here at RCI. Oliver Hagstrom Vigashu in the 811. The first of our Swedes, I believe, we see on the grid. A few of them here tonight. And this is, who are we looking at here? Daniel Jim on the right-hand side. And Raphael Huell on the left. A slight change, I believe, for Raphael this time out. I seem to remember a different livery last time, Ryan.
believe they were a yellow and black car this time, so maybe we'll see a different colour each time as we go down. And obviously the Sim Brothers Jurassic Park liveries. There's one Sim Brothers car that don't have this. I expected kind of all of them to run it, but we only have a few of the Jurassic Parks. A lot of the standard in-game liveries as well. It's interesting to see as well. You see a lot of the a lot more custom liveries in the main GT3 champs. And when you ask people to paint a GT4, a lot of people don't necessarily know how to. And it's a bit of a skill. You have obviously Mikael Sundstrom to our left as well, as he says, fresh off the FIA games. Gonna have to retune his mind from driving a GT3 car around a straight Paul Ricard to a GT4 car. You've got the RPMS, very iconic livery around here, and then the favourite livery that we've been talking about. It is the Spooky Pigeon.
Stop that pigeon, Ryan. We've got a few cobwebs across the grille, up the side, and then, of course, the Spooky Pigeon with the witch's hat and the little broomstick. Great to see. Again, shout out to Katrina Scott for that one. Ground Zero Racing, Tom Shipston, rotten run out at Kyalami last time, hoping to improve his chances here. And, of course, a few more drivers down the grid, Ryan. You kind of forget when you race GT3s in kind of like, 25 and ish kind of grids, and then you see Ginetta's where we all of a sudden have 36 cars to do the grid walk on. It's certainly a lot of cars to try and get in one single camera shot. Phil Roberts in the Parakeet livery I'm going with, not a parakeet as it is on the side. And another custom livery here, the Pink Panther, very similar to kind of Wolf Matushka's Pink Performance, although a very paint me like one of your French Panther up the side of the door. Little Swedish end plates on the car as well. Great to see. And the last few kind of custom liveries, we see a wiper and a flash of the lights from one of the RPMS SimSport boys at the back. And David Grunstrom to the left in a Valvoline liveried car as well. I noticed, Ryan, on the pit walk today before I came up to the booth. Great to see, like we say, various kind of liveries. You see a few liveries that are a little bit memey, like a witch pigeon, and then we see a few liveries that look a little bit more kind of professional, like they do belong on a grid.
Yeah, and Valvoline has just been one of those liveries that you always see on multiple race cars. There's always got to be at least one Valvoline in the race. Usually, though, that was the V8 supercars. How many Valvoline cars were featured in that through the various manufacturers?
Yeah, certainly Valvoline with a great kind of representation in Down Under in the V8 Supercars Championship. And of course, the Audi R8s not so long ago at the Bathurst race that ran in a pair. I seem to remember possibly one of them doing a 360 through Skyline, if memory serves correct, Ryan.
Yeah, I think that one was correct. Probably quite unintentional and not quite what the driver wanted, but yeah.
I think we've all done a few 360s through Skyline in our kind of provisional sim racing experience as the field heads down towards the second chicane. Going to be crucial this opening lap, Ryan, on the parade, or the warm-up lap, should we say, to really generate some heat in those tyres. Like we said earlier in qualifying, no tyre blankets for the GT4s here in ACC.
No, you can see all the brake lights on, which is the drivers riding the brakes, trying to get the... you're actually trying to slightly overheat the brakes so that will radiate out into the rim, into the tyre, and, hopefully give you a little bit of something. And you see that is the 373, your pole sitter, weaving around to try and generate even just a little bit extra heat into the skin as much as you can brake ride, and that puts heat into the core. You can find yourself, if you only brake ride, you don't kind of weave and heat up the skin as well, you can still grain the tyres very, very easily. But now the grid starts to line up 2 by 2. It's going to be a very, very interesting race, and I think it's going to be quite a chaotic race like that.
Yeah, so 36 cars crammed into a small and narrow, twisty circuit, such as the nature here at Zolder. We saw last time out at Kyalami, as soon as the pinch point of turns 4 and 5 came up, absolute chaos ensued. So we're going to want to thin the grid out, Ryan, as much as we can as we run down to the first chicane, but drivers forming up 2 by 2. Typically a very wide straight here at Zolder. Great for kind of jinking about into the first corner but not too much, as you don't want to cause any collisions. As the green flag drops, a great start from the 373, looking to move right to cover off Benjamin Heilmann, a force that we saw reckon with, and Wolf Matushka already into the outside wall at turn one. A rotten start for Wolf, but as we come back to the front, Benjamin Heilmann here looking to the outside of the 373 into turn two, not been able to make it stick, typically quite slippy around the outside. You definitely want to be having the inside line through all of these right-handers as they head up to the crucial turn that is turn four. As we did say, turn four, you want to maximize your exit. Andy Boardman here looking to make moves on Jian Yo, and Oliver Hagstrom, big issue, trying to follow through, but you see that Boardman with a slightly slower run allows Hagstrom, big issue, to pull alongside, but going down into the chicane, Ryan, you're going to want to be getting single file as the leaders do so. A little twitch there from Dario Barzaghi heading to the outside of the exit corner, not where you want to be, and riding on board here with Andy Boardman. Hagstrom, big issue, getting right up into the diffuser with the splitter of his Ginetta. You're going to be wanting to make as many moves as you can, Ryan. 29 minutes of the clock to go, and every kind of move that you look to make, every bit of ground that you try and gain is going to be very, very crucial in this sprint race format.
Yeah, very much so. As you said, just a terrible start for Wolf Matushka, and there's been contact in the final hairpin, and there has accordion affected everyone up. Andy Boardman ended up going into the back of, I think that was Bart Madger up ahead, who had to slow up, and that just bunched everybody up, and you can see the scattering from behind. Everyone trying to find a space of the track that isn't in the yellow flag zone, and people are still fighting coming down into the final corners. There's contact. Even Mikael Sundstrom has been caught up in this accident.
Yeah, Sundstrom being a kind of innocent party to the kind of 3-4 car shove that just happened into the final chicane. And this is the only problem with pack racing we get, Ryan. We said this at Kyalami. One guy bunches up, the next guy not quite paying attention or expecting a car to, you know, stop on the apex of the hairpin, and suddenly you've got a train of, you know, 20 odd Ginettas just kind of piling in to this corner. Marshall's throwing yellow flags as frantically as they can, but sometimes don't quite react enough to slow enough speed off. Obviously in the fast sections of Zolder, it can be very tricky to scrub speed. You've got no extra runoff, you've only got grass and gravel, so you throw yourself off the road to try and avoid it, and you could be throwing yourself into a wall. Christopher Streffen there jumping over the curb, trying to maximize the run onto Adam Dubil down to the Gilles Villeneuve chicane, getting very close indeed, possibly looking to make a lunge on the Forza Italia driver. Dubil is no stranger to pressure though, fighting for Streffen through, I believe, a few series before, and we see chaos again in the background. Mikael Sundstrom wanting to kind of escape this pack. He kind of sees the big train of Ginettas and admiringly thinks, I want nothing to do with this. I'm going to try and drive away from all you boys. But here, Jian Yo getting tangled up in the mid-pack, has slipped down to P18, but a terrifying face on the front of that Ginetta. Something I don't want to be seeing in my mirror, especially on the night of Halloween, Ryan.
Oh, and Jian Yao was P20, and I think that was Andy Boardman going off, and obviously one other car's been tangled up in that with the extra position gain, but I didn't quite see who it was in the background. This mid-pack seems to be the most frantic point, as everyone's trying to bunch up and no one's quite found the space yet. Christian Lindgren is now under attack from Jian Yo as well, and that's, you know, we mentioned it at Kyalami, where it's very much a danger that if you go for a move and it doesn't stick, you're under attack. Here it's even worse because the track is so small, and Maximilian Verde has decided that he's had enough of sitting behind Dario Barzaghi. He's got to force him out, and here comes the 1-2-2 as well.
Yeah, exactly as we said with pack racing, you lose that slight bit of ground and that opens the door to anybody behind that's kind of following in the train. Verde there opening the door on Barzaghi, and that of course allowed Jimenez to pull alongside, but with a bad run out of turn 4 to 5, it has allowed Barzaghi to get back through again and try and latch on to the back of the car ahead, although a bad run through the chicane. I believe he is exposed to the car behind. Oliver Hagstrom, big issue, has dropped down, Ryan, into P19. Not sure what happened there. Maybe caught up as they bang doors through the chicane. Both drivers come out of that one all right. That's a bit of Swede-on-Swede action, I believe. I believe that's Nicholas Nordqvist ahead, Ryan.
I think it is the 137, the white and gold of the Nicholas Nordqvist there, just trying to go too wide into the chicane, and that's kind of what I mentioned. the Norquist, you know, didn't necessarily have the greatest run that he wanted, and that kind of put him into the danger zone, into the, you know, into the first chicane. And it's at that moment when you're side by side that you have to think, are you either going to back out or you're going to continue and try and make the move stick. But considering the amount of dented up bodywork on a lot of these Ginettas, a lot of drivers are opting for the second and saying, we'll see if it sticks.
Yeah, I think I'm going to be going down to pit lane at the end of this race with my coloured gaffer tape as we see a car off on the inside. Phil Roberts in the Para Yeet car, certainly having a massive yeet through the chicane, catching maybe one of the RPMS boys I see stopped on the grass. Not sure which car that was at a quick glance, but Wolf Matushka, all the meanwhile, although a horrendous start, has managed to catch this kind of train of cars, Ryan, as already finds himself in P30 overall.
Yeah, Wolf on the recovery drive, trying to get any points that they can. Mike Redford has also now decided that he doesn't want to sit there too long at this contact once again in the Sim Brothers car. The Sim Brothers, one of the Jurassic Park cars, has ended up backwards outside of turn 2.
I believe Tom Shipston possibly involved in that one, maybe with Tornberg. Just going to have a look back at that. But riding aboard with Matthew Kingston-Lee in the big yellow taxi, jumping both curves again. Another car ahead off to the right, Ryan. I believe possibly Nicholas Nordqvist again not getting on too well with the chicane, but it does allow, of course, Hagstrom Vigashu to catch the back. And we see in the mirror there, the behind Broiker in the Fanatec sponsored car looking to make moves on Matthew Kingston-Lee. Of course, Kingston-Lee finds himself down in the silver class, and so does Broiker in the 81. So that is for position in the championship. You've got a few gaggles of cars, Ryan, where you've got a couple of pro cars slotted in between, so it's going to make it very interesting to see what these silver guys can do. Although we refer to them as silver guys, some of them are much to the contrary.
Yeah, some of them just, you know, showing really what they can do, and they're maybe a silver driver in some of the other cars, but you give them, you know, you give them the car, you give them the track that they really gel with, and they can take it all the way to the pro guys. I mean, Bart Matcha currently leading the silver class of that 404 is P9 overall. That's a top 10 in this grid at this circuit in cars that are not easy to drive. So, you know, that alone will be quite a good take home for that. But he's leading his class, and now finally, we've got to lap 4. People have slowly started to spread out. As you can see in the background there, the dust being kicked up, and that's people not having that necessarily great run. And Christopher Streppen has decided that the suspension does not need to be taken care of. Fires it over the jump, but Benjamin Heilman has slipped through.
Yeah, Benjamin Heilman slipped through into P1, has got the jump on the 373. Matthias through one of the chicanes, possibly a little bit of a bad exit, has allowed Harman to make the run on the 373 as he comes down to the final sector, heading up the train now for P1, 2, 3 and 4 in Pro Class. Adam de Bill on the defensive from Christopher Strapen there, a little bit of elbows out racing, very fair, kind of all in the jest of the Ginetta Cup. We do expect drivers, you know, to give each other a little bit of respect, but, you know, stewards will be looking down from the booth sitting next to us. Of course, frantic scribbling going down for the lap 1 incidents. I would hate to try and judge some of them again, Brian. We said this last time at Kyalami with the massive incident from turns 4 and 5, and stewards were very busy across the hour, but stewards, of course, have only got half the time tonight to make their decisions. So, frantic scribbling, ahoy.
Half the time, but I don't necessarily think half of the incidents to look at, especially at a track that is smaller than Kyalami, and people of you know, what we said at the top of the hour, people are going to be on this aggressive attack because you're already starting to run out of time. 10 minutes has already passed almost. We're almost at the 20-minute mark. Don't feel like that, but you've already completed 5 laps of the race.
Yeah, certainly so. And Benjamin Harman is going to encounter a little bit of traffic, I believe. Possibly the spooky pigeon car of Ted Edwards ahead there. We just saw coming out of shot, but Benjamin Harman is no stranger to pressure at all. I remember racing him in a BMW M2 Cup over at OVRC probably a few months ago now when they first came out, and he just absorbed all the pressure I had him under. I was on his bumper, I was slipstreaming, I was jinking, I was making myself 3 times the size of an M2 in his mirror, and he just would not cave to anything. So hopefully Benjamin can hold on to take the top step of the podium. Christian Lindgren here in the kind of sandwich of the Swedes, I will say. Oliver Hackstrom, big issue behind, and Nicholas Nordqvist just up the road ahead, but he has got Joe Dorber separating him. But of course, Christian Lindgren has 1, 2, 3, 4 pro cars to clear before he catches the back of championship leader in the 37. So he's got a few bits of ground, to gain. Our fellow Swede Christian Lindgren down to the last chicane. No move appears to be on here. Not close enough to the back of the Ginetta ahead, but we do know, Ryan, all can change in a split second in Ginetta racing.
He also has to be very careful because that is Matthew Kingston Lee right behind the bright yellow Ginetta, just lurking. So as much as these cars ahead and not for position, you've got to be careful. You can go for one move, one botched move will put you into the jaws of someone who is in your class.
Christian Lindgren currently resides in P6, I believe, if my calculations are correct, off the scoreboard on the left. João Manzo, fellow Portuguese driver for the RPMS Simsport boys, becoming to be a regular here at RCI on Mondays. Signed up for the Deutschland Masters and now finds himself in the Ginetta Cup as well, down in P31, trying to latch onto the back of Tom Shipstead, and Verstappen finds himself in the grass. And this is what we were talking about, Ryan, with Pack Racing. One mistake, Verstappen's gone all the way down to P7, I believe, with Daniel Jim just behind him, new Spaniard to the grid. He does find himself losing a lot of ground there. Maximilian Verde has overtaken him, Dario Barzaghi, Jimenez, and then we have Verstappen. So very far out of sync now, Ryan. I'd be interested to see what happened there.
Yeah, something has definitely happened in the in one of the chicanes. It was very, very close on all of the deltas, and then the next time we we look forward, you just have the number 7 spinning around on the grass almost. So something has definitely happened to the 7. We'll have to see if we can work out what necessarily happened. But it's going to be, once again, another recovery drive. A couple of people already on the recovery drive. A couple of people having to manage damage, and now Christopher Verstappen has to push back forwards, but he's only got 18 minutes left to do it.
Yeah, we know Verstappen, though, can go like a scolded cat when he needs to. Jimenez, next car in the line, and of course from the TV pictures we just saw, Verstappen doesn't actually look too far behind, so certainly possibly doable to recover a couple of positions. Joe Dorber still coming under pressure from Christian Lindgren, does find himself in the Swedish sandwich of Nicholas Nordqvist and Christian Lindgren there in the yellow Ginetta ahead as they come through turn 4. Going to want to get a clean run through there, and Matt Stevens comes under fire to Matthias Thornberg in the Pink Panther car. These guys getting very dicey indeed. Again, this isn't even for championship honours, Ryan. This is just kind of, we want to get a move on. We want to catch the silver guys, and Matt Stevens with a great run out of turn 4 down to turn 5, side by side, pink car to the inside. And I think Thornberg kind of played that very smartly indeed and thought, I'm backing out of this. I'm not going too wide with you. You're nothing to do with my championship. I'm going to preserve what I've got.
Well, I think after a bit he realised that Matt Stevens wasn't necessarily going to just let off and give the place back, or stamp on the brakes. And like I said, very wisely ends up putting the brakes on, realising that we'll live to fight another day. And Oliver Hackstrom figures you nearly there into the back of Christian Lindgren. That corner does seem to be very much the hot spot of this racetrack. It's the accordion effect. I think as well, with the Ginettas, a lot of people maybe be, a little bit better on the brakes, a little bit more confident in this car, and that the heaviest braking zone on the circuit is where a lot of people you either find if you're good on the brakes or bad on the brakes, and that is where people are starting to bunch up, and this train still has not really yet to falter. And Wolf Matuszka there in the background, recovering from that early spin, has managed to get themselves back up into P24, so not bad considering what happened right at the start of the race.
Yeah, certainly so, Ryan. And looking down the list of names, Benjamin Heilmann has disappeared from your top 5. He now finds himself down in P14 as we ride on board the Swedish Mikael Sundström, representing obviously Team Sweden from the FIA Games weekend just gone at Paul Ricard. Finds himself gapping the guys behind of Yule and Shirley. Very much so. Very clean run through the chicane for Mikael, but not so much for Shirley and Raphael Kuhl. But these guys fighting for overall bottom step of the silver podium. Kuhl currently resides in or did reside, sorry, in P3, but Shirley has now, there we go, the timing has updated. Shirley has now taken that bottom step, although still just over 15 minutes to go, Ryan. Absolutely anything can happen. As we said, down at the hairpin does appear to be the kind of bunch point, although it could be down to many factors such as, you know, brake pads. Some drivers, such as myself, we prefer pad 2, which of course goes a little bit kind of longer in the braking zone, and then you've got pad 1 users that love it because it's very bitey. You can stop on a dime, but Matthew Kingston Lee now challenging the back of Hagstrom Vigashu down into the last turn. Vigashu on the inside, Kingston Lee to the outside. Kind of can't make anything work as the last chicane is typically very hard to get a move done unless you get that inside line, and a great run out the hairpin. No move on there.
Raphael Huell trying to go the long way around Shirley, right to the edge of the circuit. I think was trying to throw it so that you can get the cut back, but it just wasn't going to happen that time. A little bit of a wider line though from Shirley in the 1. You've got to be careful not to touch that gravel, otherwise you end up exactly, you know, where you were 2 laps ago with the Pink Panther car side by side. But as they run, look who also has come into this battle. It's the 37, and that as Nat Shirley has spun it in the second chicane.
Too much curb on the entry there, Ryan. I think just bounced a little bit weird and fired the little light Ginetta off to driver's right, but that does now promote Raphael Huell up into the bottom step of the podium, but is still under pressure from fellow Swedish drivers. And looking towards the the steward's box, Tom Bryant waving a piece of paper at me through the window, pointing at it, as we do have a few incidents determined already. Lap 1, turn 4, involving the 127 and the 777 was deemed a racing incident, minor contact. Incident lap 1, turn 5, involving the 195 and the 33. No further action. The 195 hops the curb into the side of the 33 and puts themselves in the gravel as a result. And finally, as of now, lap 1, turn 5, involving the 203 and the 777 again, was a racing incident, side-by-side racing contact. So stewards, 3 incidents on the board, still probably a lot more to go, but this man here, Benjamin Heilman, on a fight back through the grid after a mistake put him out of the top kind of 5 running that he was in, looking to try and claw back a few positions, and he does so, makes up 1 on the 37. A silver championship leader, of course, makes no difference to the points haul, although Sundstrom, Ryan, we saw down in, you know, the mid to late teens of the positions in qualifying, shall we say, now finds himself up into P10 as a result of a clean start.
Yeah, well, Mikhail will do this. He's a very calculated racer, knows when to take the risk, when not to take the risk, and just plods away very happily. And he will always seem to make some positions. Now, this is going to be a test of the late breakers. Who's got the guts there, almost, as Joe Dorber forces the way through a little bit of door-to-door action and up into P16 for Joe Dorber, and behind as well. Now he's ended up under attack from the 811.
Yeah, the Sim brothers, I believe, Sim Sport car making up a place there as well. So great to see Ethan Scott there using all of the curb and a little bit more. Wolf Matushka there gains another place up into P20. Really on the fight back. Last time we checked in with Wolf was probably a good maybe 10 minutes ago or so, seeing how he was, and he has of course made up 10 positions in that time. Next in his sights is P19. As we flick to the front here, Bart Matcher, one of our RCI staff members here, has connection loss racing in the 404, finds himself battling with a pro car of Daniel Jim, the 71, new driver here tonight at RCI, a late sign up in the championship. But Bart, on his opening race, really going something solid. Could be a good contender for the silver championship, Ryan.
Yeah, and you mentioned that, even if it is just a silver driver, doesn't necessarily mean anything to the skill of this, and Bart's kind of showing that, very much taking it to the pro cars, braking hard into the first chicane, firing it over. The cars just managed to get themselves settled down. Still very, very close. And now looking, we had the brief lull in the middle of the race. Everything is starting to bunch back up. If you look at the timing screens, all the battles that once kind of settled and we had a little bit of a second gap, they've all reignited again.
Yeah, great thing about pack racing, Ryan, we said it in Kyle Army, we said, you will occasionally meet that driver that is on the same pace as you. Again, having these opening lap incidents kind of shuffles the deck, if you like, and puts a lot of drivers out of sync where you wouldn't necessarily see them. You know, Christopher Strapen with a mistake at the start of the race now finds himself side by side with Barzaghi going into the last chicane. Barzaghi to the inside, covers it well, shuts the door on the second half of the chicane, but Verstappen all over the curb, trying to make as much distance as he can to the back of Barzaghi's Ginetta, looking at the TV cam, almost mistaken for having one car, and Heilmann on the same move on Raphael Huel on his comeback as well into the last chicane, but no move to be done. Last chicane proving very tricky to even get anything done. As we flick back to the front here, no change for position for Strapen, still finds himself behind Barzaghi, but a couple of cars ahead could play into the hands of that fight, and Heilmann does find his way indeed past Raphael Huel. Huel being a very smart racer, possibly thinking, you know what, this has nothing to do with me. Once again, I'm going to let you go, although he does now find himself locked in a silver fight with the championship leader, the number 37, the yellow and black car just behind.
Yeah, well, necessarily knew that Heilmann is just on the charge back up, and that's the 71 off the road. That is Daniel Jim. A little bit of mistake through the first chicane, sends that car off the road, and there you go. Now it's Bart Matcher up into P7 overall. Silver class leader by a county mile, and the Connection Lost racing car really managing to find the pace now.
Yeah, Bart Matcher seems super switched on to the Ginetta. Always one of those drivers that kind of excels in the odd pick, should we say. Remember British Masters taking the 650S, he still made that car ultra competitive, as we see Ted Edwards there getting out of the way, moving the Pigeon to a safe side of the road to allow the leading pack through. We've got here Maximilian Vedi on the back of Adam Dubil, and on the back of him we have Dario Barzaghi, who has the fastest lap on the grid. That's what that little purple number means next to Barzaghi's name. But these guys super bunching up now, and we see Verstappen kind of lurking in the background, maybe going to play it a little bit smart and think, you know what, these guys are getting a bit close. If one of them makes a mistake, this is a free position. And of course, the top 6 cars being all fighting for pro honours could be a good chunk of championship points to gain.
Well, not just that, but this will also start to slow this pack down. It will start to slow these drivers down the more that they battle. And considering what happened to Christopher Strapen and dropped all that time down, managing to make it all the way up, so P3 is in sight as Maximilian Verde goes for a move on the 840 of Adam Dubil. But look, it's opened the door up for Dario Barzaghi and the Ballers Esports car. They're going to be 3 wide over the hill, and Maximilian Verde does not get the run that the other two had. Dario Barzaghi managing to read the traffic, but Maximilian Verde is not taking that for an answer, door to door. And here comes Christopher Strapen. I mentioned that it was going to slow them down. Look at the gap that Dario Barzaghi has already pulled out, and there's contact.
Contact on the back of Verde to Verstappen. I don't want to call it, but possibly Stewart's going to be looking into that one. And Jimenez finds his way past as well. Verstappen now goes side by side with Adam Dubil around the outside of the hairpin. But like you say, Ryan, Dario Barzaghi there reading the traffic like excellently. Saw they were going too wide in the chicane. Possibly brake that a little bit harder than he normally would to kind of get a smooth and slingshot run through turns 5 up into the hill of 6 and going 3 wide towards 7, and made a move stick. And of course the drivers going side by side through the Gilles Villeneuve chicane slowed them up so much that Barzaghi has managed to stretch his legs completely away.
Well, that'll be great news for the number 8 driver, just having that little bit of breathing space with the with 6 minutes to go. The more that these people fight, the more that that gap will improve, and it really takes the the stress off. So Adam Dubil now has to sort of maintain composure from the charging Christopher Strapen. We saw this at Kyalami where he had a great bout of speed, had a little bit of a lull in the centre, and then comes back alive, and here comes the number 7. A little bit of a contact. You heard the engine revs pick up there, and Christopher Strapen goes wide, and that is a launched 840. Adam Dubil flying over the curb onto the grass, and does keep the car just about pointing in the right direction.
Forza Italia, Top PL Racing, I think, launching a program in partnership with NASA on sending a Ginetta GT4 to the moon. And Dubil there taking way too much curb, being forced almost to by Verstappen, and does unfortunately unsettle the car and fire it off to driver's right, but very well held indeed as Jimenez now comes under fire from the Belgian driver Christoph Verstappen, looking to take as many places as he can on home turf here. Maximilian Verde now getting back involved. These guys got to be very smart through these little corners, although they're tiny little kinks in the straight down to the last turn. Everybody bunching up now. Jimenez covering the inside as much as he can, but moves to driver's right, and Verstappen finds a gap with 3 wide through the last turn. Contact, Jimenez sideways, Ted Edwards taking avoiding action, keeping the pigeon safe, and I think Daniel Jim even making up a ground there as well.
It's so crazy what is going on in the last few laps of this race. Maximilian Verde still not letting up on Christoph Verstappen, and like I said, you saw Jimenez earlier. He was once again one of the cars that could read the traffic better, got through, and then ended up once again under the under attack from the number 7, who's just been on a charge. Now with clear air ahead, I think we'll slowly start to see what the number 7 can do, but with the damage that has been put on that car and how aggressive that they've had to have been driving, you must think that A, the tyres must be a little bit worn, and B, as a driver, you must be a little bit worn out now. These have been a crazy few laps of the 89, not letting up the fight onto the back of Christoph Verstappen.
Yeah, Maximilian Verde certainly super fired up. Frenchman in the 89, virtual drivers by TX3, Ginetta. Verstappen lights ablaze on his car, trying to run away from this kind of little pack behind, but I think he's going to end up taking Verde with him, whether he likes it or not. Both drivers of a very similar pace. Normally see them locked together quite a lot in qualifying, as Oliver Hagstrom, big issues, sizes up a move on the car ahead. Christian Lindgren jumping over the curb, trying to shortcut the chicane as much as possible, and a fanfare of Ginetta's behind, all spreading out as well. Ethan Scott looking to get involved in the green, blue and yellow Ginetta, but Wolf Matuszka ahead, able to stretch the legs past and made up another 3 positions from when we last checked in. But Hagstrom, big issue, now makes up the ground on Christian Lindgren, finally free to run away with just under 4 minutes to go, Ryan, and stewards having to catch up on a lot of action. I think they fully caught up to the point where it all kicked off in the last chicane, and contact there. Mike Redford, I believe, with 5-second penalty to his name already. We'll get to that in a second. Into the door of Ethan Scott, into the hairpin again. Like you say, Ryan, the accordion effect is happening time and time again in the hairpin. And we go to the stewards' notes as we have an incident lap 1, turn 1, involving the 25 and the 840. No further action. We have an incident lap 1, turn 5, involving the 133 and the the 137 and the 33. No further action. Incident lap 1, turn 12, involving the 741, the 81 and the 60. We have a drive-through for car 81. I believe that was Broikers we saw on that one. Moving under braking causes contact, which then leads to the takeout. Incident lap 1, turn 8, involving the 133, the 137 again. So the 6, the 222, the 24. We have a 5 seconds for the 24. Mike Redford causing contact and releasing the brakes, causing avoidable contact with the rear of the 222. And finally caught up for now, but incident lap 1, turn 16, involving the 21 and the 203. Again, a minor contact as these guys bunching up, Ryan, into the chicane. This isn't going to end well.
Mike Redford firing it over the first chicane, and actually up a little bit up ahead. That's the Valvoline car. That is David Grunstrom also under attack. That is Matthew Kingston Lee trying to go around the outside into the second chicane. It is doable, and they're still side by side all the way. Room and the space has been given, still side by side, and finally Matthew Kingston Lee gets that space made. And while you were reading out the reports, we saw sadly Phil Roberts ended up also in a tangle, and that is the second bird car that was off hard into the wall, and you can see that the 225 has been towed back to the pit lane.
Yeah, a couple of drivers residing in the pit lane as we speak. Broika for the drive-through, possibly calling it an end to this race. No way of coming back for him, maybe. Given up, parked it in the garage for now. Get a little bit of a chill and a reset before the next race. Phil Roberts, as you just mentioned, and Jan Yo. Not sure what happened to him, Ryan, but he is in the pit lane. 5 laps down to the goods. That puts him about kind of around the 10-minute mark he went out.
Roundabout, so once again something happened to Janyo. There's been so many things that have happened to various drivers up and down this grid. It's hard to keep track of everything, as Nicholas Nordquist also goes for a move on the I think that's Christian Lindgren up ahead. In fact, there you go. Yep, the 21 has been updated. The 137 up the inside. It's going to be once again a run out onto the back straight. The run will be compromised for the Sim Brothers car, and the 137 has just enough to pull ahead for the first chicane. But you can see, look, everyone in the background trying to size up and jink moves into the chicane to try and make people think if you take your eyes off the road coming into the first chicane, it can end in tears.
Fantastic sights as the Ginettas all jump over the curves. But you think, Ryan, being, you know, fellow Swedes of each other, you think they'd be giving each other a little bit more kind of room in these places and letting them get on with their race a lot more. But we're seeing the Swedes being like super fired up against each other almost.
Exactly so, but when I think the term "all is love in," all is fair in love and war. I think when the green flag drops, that is what a lot of these drivers class it as. It is no longer you are my friend, you are my enemy. Up until the checkered flag drops, and then you're my friend again.
Yeah, definitely so. I think that is kind of true to the race here. We see a lot of guys that we know in the community as, you know, great friends and great teammates alike, seeing them in, you know, numerous endurance races, numerous team events, and of course sporting each other's liveries in the single kind of driver events. But in a one-make championship like this, it's all to play for, as we see turn one getting absolutely manic. It's a queue of 6 cars here, Ryan. David Grunstrom, I believe, at the back. Tom Shipston alongside, again, sizing up moves on each other. Everybody's just constantly too wide, and I believe one of the Nordquist brothers there, wide over the curb, allows the train to tow past him. Tom Shipston going to look to try and get his nose alongside before turn 4 as well, and he does so. Respectfully, racing room given between these drivers, and Mike Redford now sizing up a move in the back, coming alongside Tom Shipston. Might even have to go defensive. Looks a little bit slow compared to Redford's run, but again, guys ahead. RPMS Sim Sport and the Sim Brothers racing cars side by side, looking to try and make every possible gain as the checkered flag dropped. The 373 is your victor. But back to this fight, Ryan. This is not done yet. Last lap, everything to play for. These guys in various categories, pro, silver, who cares at this point? Everybody is looking for those extra few points, and we see a few pre-race penalties being handed out as well.
Yeah, everyone is starting to, you know, this is basically your last real chance. It's the last bout if you're going to get that one position up ahead. Mike Redford under attack from, you've got Matthew Kingston Lee on Matt Stevens. Matt Stevens hard down onto the inside of the track, knows that this is the last point you need to defend. You're going to have to block it hard from the 555, trying to go around the outside. He'll have the inside for the run to the line. They're still too wide, but Matt Stevens manages to get the hammer down earlier. We'll have the run up to the line. Tom Shipston is still trying to bring that RPMS car, and there you go, it's almost 3 wide across the line.
Absolutely chaotic scenes on the last lap, Ryan, racing right down to the final corner. And for those of you that are here for the first race, do not go anywhere, because we do have a second 30-minute race coming up. We're going to give these drivers a little, you know, 3-minute break, we decided, for the guys to grid up, get kind of reset, grab a drink, grab a bathroom break, and anything else they need. But Albin Manson, absolute stinker of a race. Very good performance out at Kyalami, but not so much here at Zolder. But great to see the last car still making it towards the line. And I believe this will be your final car before the checkered flag does come out for everybody. A couple of pre-race penalties, post-race penalties, sorry, being handed out. Going to be shuffling the order from what you might have seen on the scoreboard, and we will of course, run down to that in a second. But Matcha, your silver winner in the 404 Connection Lost Racing, a stellar drive. Look at him slap bang in the middle of the pro guys, Ryan.
Very much so. That was kind of that was one of the, you know, the run that you wanted in the silver class, to get some of these points to bring Bart Matcha really back into contention of this. And the race up ahead, we didn't know who was leading at one point. It felt like no one really wanted to lead this race up to, at one point, people got in it and then fell off.
Yeah, absolutely chaotic scenes. We saw drivers who we thought were super strong at the front all of a sudden make a mistake, drop right back. But then Christopher Strapen, one of the big winners of his comeback, made it all the way back up to P3. And we have Tom Bryant in our chat stating the stewards made it as far as lap 3 before it all got a little bit too much. So to any guys that are stewarding tonight, we have Daniel, Andreas, Connor, Jesse Lee making a rare appearance as a steward, and Tom Bryant. Shout out to all those guys because I would like to be in that box, Ryan. I'm quite happy in the comms box, shouting everything and casting the action, not so much deciding the action and who gets what penalty along the way.
Jesse Lee as the steward. That is not a thing that you hear very often, ladies and gentlemen. I can assure you that. But yeah, what a race that has been. It was. I did think that this would, this kind of format would bring this, the aggression, the levels of aggression that you saw right at the start of the race, where everyone knew that as soon as the green flag dropped, you were already into that window of you have to make a move. We talk about when we go endurance racing, how a lot of times there's a little bit of a fight at the start. Everyone kind of settles down into the, yep, okay, it's a race, we'll just keep going. And then usually in the last, 20 minutes, half an hour of the race, things start heating up. As soon as the green flag dropped, everyone was in that mode.
Yeah, everybody absolutely went like a scolded cat in race 1. Of course, don't go anywhere, although we normally show this screen when the race is ending and we're rolling out of the credits. We are, of course, about to hit race 2, as we do give the drivers a little break between the two. We let the flares on the track settle down. We let everybody kind of calm their nerves and get themselves kind of reset into a calmer mind. It can be very, very hectic indeed racing this close for this short amount of time. Normally, like Ryan says, you kind of have that window in endurance races where you have a little fight at the start. You then determine where you kind of reside in the grid. You think, I'm going to hold here for a bit. I'm going to see how the pit stops play out, see who's running what, and then we're going to kind of like slowly scrabble our way up the order. Whereas here, it's the green drops and that's it. All hell breaks loose. We're all going, straight out the door. Everybody like 8 cars into one turn. I got to make up ground. I haven't got time to be sat behind you. Get out of my way. Almost like your commute to work if you leave a little bit late. If you wake up like half an hour later and think, oh, got to make up some time somewhere. I'm going to be scrabbling around.
Very much so, and that it was such like I said, a crazy race. We had a few notes from some of the people. We were struggling to understand what happened to certain drivers in this race. Benjamin Heilman being one of those, as you mentioned, all the way up leading the race, and then dropped all the way down. Well, he poked his head in, being part of the staff team here, and said he has never spun out of the chicane in all of his practice. Except the one time that you get in front of the race, of course, that is the time that it's going to happen, because that is just how racing works, ladies and gentlemen. You can practice it for days upon weeks. You get into the race, and it just happens to you.
It's like that thing where anybody that's played a first-person shooter competitively will understand this. Mainly with CS:GO, I find it happens. You kind of, you spawn as a CT, have your knife in hand, ready to run to long A. You run to long A, you stand there with your gun ready, you're still ready, and you think, nobody's come yet. Somebody should be here by now. I'm going to drop a smoke grenade. As soon as you pull out the smoke grenade, pull the pin, somebody peeks the corner. And it is literally the same thing here. You can practice hours upon hours upon hours. You never, ever, 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 ever spin like Benjamin Heilman. And then all of a sudden, out of one of the chicanes, you mat the throttle, and the traction control's like, nope, you're going sideways today.
Exactly so, and these are some of the post-race penalties being applied. That is why some of the people have ended up shuffling down the grid. But the order, at least as it stands for the winners, is set in stone, and you see a lot of the people at the bottom of the bottom of the screen. Those are the cars that ended up returning to the pits, didn't make it, or just had too much damage to continue. We wondered what happened to Jan Yao as well. Found out that as well. It was that incident that we caught in the bottom hairpin where everybody bunched up. The car was just apparently too damaged. It had a phenomenal amount of damage for a GT4 car, and it just did not really fancy continuing, did Jan Yao. Towed it back to the pits, and we were hoping that in the second round it will have a bit of a better run at it.
Yeah, that's a glorious thing about a two-race format. You kind of find your feet in where things might have gone wrong and possibly start trying to avoid that next time out. But again, going through some of the messages we've got from the race. Ethan Scott, I feel so sorry for the stewards. That was a lot of chaos. Tom Bryant replies, 60 incidents. We're having so much fun. Matt Stevens hits an LOL. And Mike Redford says, I wonder why I was seeing so few penalties, mainly because they are trying to filter their way through. And Mike Redford then says, cut to a fax machine about to explode. And I can only imagine what that might sound like.
Well, I mean, just poke your head into the steward's office. I'm sure that will that will be the sound of that, and the sound of very of numerous groans from the stewards as having to sort out all of this. As they mentioned that that is the number of incidents we've had. They haven't even finished all of them, and they've still got one more race to go.
Yeah, going to be absolute chaos again, Ryan, for race 2. And I certainly cannot wait as the cars do begin to grid up for their 5-minute countdown. As we see here, Ryan, this time from the back of the grid, looking forward so we can go and see the rear end of all these lovely custom liveries. We do sport, obviously, the RPMS with a big showing, as always, here at RCI. Great to see these boys out and about. Endurance races come up and they all pile into one car. It's great. I think I can see a Please No Punterino on the back of, I believe that's Mike Redford's car. If you can read this, then back the F up, please. Obviously, a good Christian show here at RCI. And we do, of course, bleep the swearing even on the liveries. We ask people to star them out. As Phil Roberts' Para-Yeet car back on the grid, with some damage being fixed, no doubt, just on the left-hand side, jumping up and down. Very eager to get going on and off the jacks, of course. No tyre warmers here, so it's pretty pointless sitting in your setup screen. Probably going to have a few drivers adjusting their fuel loads, maybe if they were finishing with 10 litres too many, possibly backing that off. The Pink Panther livery on the right-hand side. Of course, the Jurassic Park themed liveries. And it's very aesthetically pleasing, Ryan, to see every kind of quarter panel and mirror lining up with each other.
Yeah, when everyone is identical, you kind of get this. But I think as well, at least people will have definitely learned that from Kyalami. How many cars did we not finish the race, where people were trying to cut the fuel load so fine that they ended up running out? I think for the sprint race, maybe some people, especially the ones who ran out of fuel at those, like I said, might have elected to take a little bit more fuel on board to make sure that they do absolutely finish. And you've got to hand it to all of the teams that have managed to fix all these cars in time for the race. I'm sure that Ginetta will love Spec Cups like this, not only because of the close racing and they get to show off their cars, but the fact that afterwards you'll have a big influx of body panels to buy.
Yeah, I wouldn't like to be working in that parts department come tomorrow morning when all these teams get ordering their parts for next week before we head to Mount Panorama for it's a 1-hour sprint race, of course, with the mandatory stop included. And Katrina Scott in chat, kind of alleviating the stewards. I will bake cookies for the stewards next week. And of course, the people that sit next to the stewards, possibly the casters as well, Ryan. Maybe we should get some cookies too.
It would be nice, wouldn't it? And we appear to have one car missing in the 840 now. Who qualified there?
Possibly Bart Matcher, I want to say. Should have Verstappen
no,
to the left. No, there's Bart Matcher.
404, the connection lost racing car has not lost connection. They are still well and truly here as the 404. It is whoever qualified to their right.
Interesting.
We are one Ginetta down. Now what that will also do is it will shuffle up people from behind that position on the grid, as the game will populate that with the car that is to the left, which I think will mean that Christopher Streppen, so it will move forward one, and there we go, the car is actually back. It's magical Dario Barzaghi. Dario Barzaghi. The team was so fast, when I turned the camera away, they just pushed the car there and they ran away.
The Barless Esports guys investing in some kind of magical witchcraft.
Teleportation. That's how they're so fast. That's how they're so fast. You can teleport from the start of the race to the end of the race.
Simples. That's how Dario got a P2 last time out. He just simply teleported his way back to the front. It all makes sense now, Ryan. Now you said it like that, I can go to bed and sleep peacefully.
Simply, this is how you be super fast. You just invest teleportation, and if anyone can work that out, then please sell me it, because I would like some pace as well. But as everyone drops down and finds the ignition button, it will be the 373 off, leading us out as all the Ginettas start to run down the grid.
The pink car ahead there. Wolf Matushka gonna want to have a polar opposite of turn one last time, being fired into the outside armco, very narrowly missing the steward's post that does reside there as well. So possibly Wolf going to be learning from what happened there and possibly doing the complete opposite. Mikael Sundstrom, of course, down in P20 in amongst the silver guys, looking to make some big gains. He did find his way up the grid last time, but did get slapped with a pre-race penalty on that one as well. The steward's still probably furiously writing and deciding on a lot of the events as we speak. I'm gonna see if I can figure out. We've got a big old list here before they've closed off the sheet of paper for round one. So we have an instant lap 1 turn 16 involving the 899, the 77 and the 1 drive through for the 899. We then have an instant lap 2 turn 8 involving the 1 and the 37 racing incident. Lap 2 turn 16 involving the 54 and the 77, again racing incident. Lap 2, turn 7, involving the 69, the 1, and the 811. Stop go 10 for the car 1 for a takeout of the 69 and the 811. Incident lap 3, turn 7, involving the 137 and the 811. Racing incident. Lap 3, turn 13, involving the 77 and the 225. Racing incident. Incident on lap 8, turn 16, involving the 909, the 54. 15 seconds for the 909 as the 909 punts the 54 but does give back to the position. Incident lap 3, turn 16, involving the 77, the 225, and the 127. A warning for the 77 not holding brakes on an accident. Incident on lap 5, turn 15, involving the 7 and the 840 racing incident. And we have an incident lap 7, turn 11, involving the 133, the 137 and the 777 racing incident. And then we have an incident lap 8, turn 2, involving the 54 and the 77 racing incident. And then lap 3, turn 16, involving the 225, the 127, 77, a drive-through for the 127, or a takeout on the 225. And that wraps up all of your race 1 incidents just in time as the drivers begin to grid up side by side.
Just about, and it's time again. The grid will be reset to what it was, and that also answers one of the questions we had in the YouTube chat. Does qualifying, do they grid back up in the same qualifying spot? Yes, you do. That is why qualifying is so important, even in this sprint format. It sets your starting point for both races. So even if you had a bad race, doesn't matter. If you qualified well, you've got another shot at it. As once again, it will be the 373 to lead us away. You're waiting for that green flag. It feels like forever when you're like this as a driver. Your heart's racing, you're waiting for it, and there goes the green.
Green flag, great drive from the 373 off the line. Wolf Matushka there playing a little bit more conservative, hugging that inside line, getting the jump on Adam DeBille, and that does allow him to the back of Benjamin Harman in the 796. A lot cleaner this time. Maximilian Vede there making up ground on Bart Matcher. Bart Matcher to the outside, Vede to the inside. Being a very smart move indeed. It does give you the inside for the next couple of turns, but everybody, Ryan, seems to have kind of singled out a little bit more, a bit of a less frantic start, although Jan Yao coming under pressure from Oliver Hagstrom. Vigashu to the outside of the exit of turn 4, giving him the inside, of course, into turn 5, but guys looking to thin out at the front of the grid. We see a couple of side-by-sides into the chicane. We look to the front. Everybody looks to be making a safe journey through the chicane. We don't have any NASA kind of space flight programs occurring at all as everybody rounds over the hill, single file. Everybody appears to have been a little bit more conservative, but Benjamin Harman elbows out into the circuit. Gilles Villeneuve, I believe, possibly Barzaghi, I saw on the inside there. I could be mistaken, but I saw a flash of, there we go, indeed parked on the inside of the Gilles Villeneuve chicane. Takes the elf board with him for some additional sponsorship, but back to the front. Wolf Matushka bumps into Harman, forces him into the 373. Harman back on the inside, collected by DeBille briefly as everybody chokes up 3 wide through turns 9 and 10 on the race to 11. We saw Ryan last time 4 wide. This did not go wisely last time.
And it's once again, it's that same point. It's the hairpin just before the final bit of the chicane that is the choke point. We've seen that happen now a few times. It's just people who are different on the brakes in these cars. You know, either maximizing it or playing it a little bit safe at the start of the race. It has bunched everyone up again, and we're almost 3 wide down the front straight. It's wider, you know, at the start of the front straight, but it narrows down immensely coming into turn 1.
Absolutely chaotic scenes, 4 wide down into turn 11 on the opening lap. Oliver Hagstrom Vigashu manages to keep the place of P10, coming onto the back of Jan Yo's cursed livery, ready for Halloween. Very spooky indeed. Wouldn't want to be Bart Matcher looking in his mirror seeing that, although everybody bunching up, Ryan, like you say, seems to be the cause of it into the hairpin. It didn't really help that people are firing moves off into the hairpin initially. That, of course, bunches everybody up regardless, but then you've got this kind of single file train coming behind you where, you know, you've got drivers unsighted, you've got drivers that are 8 deep in a pack of, you know, 10 cars in a line, and just absolutely chaotic scenes. The 373 being the biggest loser, dropping down to P4. Benjamin Harmon keeps the P3, Verstappen in P2, and Adam de Bill kind of keeps the lead in the 840 Forza Italia car. But running on board here with Haranes in the 203, looking in the mirror to see Alvin Manson, a much better start this time, not down so far as he was, but we see there, Ryan, the big gain in the mirror from Manson on the brakes. Everybody kind of not expecting people to brake where they brake, like I said in the first race as well. Maybe people using the different compound of pads, some driving on pads 1, maybe some electing to take pads 2 for the more consistent feel that it gives in the pedal.
Very much so, and also a little bit, as much as you can't change it much, probably a little bit of brake bias changes, and that is the 203 now hard attacking Andy. That's Andy Boardman for the 69. A little bit of a wiggle there and a little bit of a touch down the main straight, trying to pin him to the apex, and Andy Boardman then ends up going wide because of that. Couldn't get the car resettled.
Yeah, Haran's there with a very good gain there into a lot of clean air. Pardon me, Nat Shirley there coming under fire from Sundstrom on the inside. Fellow Swede on action, gives him the inside line for the next couple of corners. And we see ahead there a fellow Swede, I believe that's Manson Sim Brothers Jurassic Park livery. Gonna probably maybe work with Mikhail to kind of get him towards the front. Again, these guys are battling for championship honours, so we're going to see if friendships are getting tested here. Nat Shipley looking very close to the back of Sundstrom as he launches the nearly on pace Ginetta, the 899 across those curbs. Want to be very careful on these opening laps. Obviously, with the tyre pressures being ever so low, you could of course damage the Pirellis and lead to pressure loss with extreme use of the curb. But Tom Shipston, a little bit of a better run now, P21 overall, does find himself in that weird kind of pro silver mid-ground where you've got a kind of silver car ahead of you to clear before you catch your next rival for the championship. But Daniel Jim a little bit out of sync there down in P19, Ryan. I'm wondering if he got caught up in the opening lap mess.
Yeah, there's a few people who have ended up kind of shuffled around and shuffled towards the back of the grid. Obviously some more sort of race shake-ups that we didn't quite catch. It has been a lot calmer race start though. People are still very, very close, yes, but it's a lot calmer, more calculated from a lot of these drivers because they know, you know, you go too much door to door, you end up just damaging your race car and damaging your race entirely. Matt Stevens in the 77 RPMS trying to take the long way around the 203 ahead. He just didn't have enough grip, and now that you've gone for that move once again, Andy Boardman's now been brought right back up into this fight, even though it's not for his class. He'll be thinking, you know, get on with it and please either make the position or don't, because I've got to get up ahead, because you can see Joe Dorber just driving off into the distance.
Yeah, certainly what you don't want to see between the silver cars. And like we keep saying, the silver guys are within right to fight, but Wolf Matushka giving a slight lick to the back of the pink performance. Ginetta goes off to the inside. Bart Matcher splits on the inside. Jan Yo looking to make a position up out of this as well. Possibly Bart getting a little bit too late on the brakes, giving the back of Wolf a little rub as they go side by side, too deep in the Gilles Villeneuve chicane, and Bart Matcher does come under pressure from, I believe, Oliver Hagstrom. Big issue behind, looking to make a gain as he smashes the Audi Sport banner out of the way. No time for additional sponsors, and Bart is about to be coming under fire from a massive pack of Ginetta's. Ryan, I would not like to be in that car right now.
And as much as Bart's the silver leader, he's not the silver leader by very, very far. There's 3 pro cars that separate him from the next rival. And as much as Bart had the great race at the start, you know, quite an easy run out, you know, just ran the car and ran his race, he's now ended up in this situation you exactly don't want to be in. Everybody is hounding you, and one tiny mistake sets you back into the pack. I mean, look at that coming down the straight. That is a very vicious pack wanting to swallow you up.
Yeah, absolutely ferocious sights in the mirror. I certainly wouldn't want to be in Bart's car at the moment. And the RPMS SimSport car of Matt Stevens is the next rival for that Ginetta of Bart Matcher in the front. So P1 and 2 separated by 2 pro cars between them, if that, and that could all change in the blink of an eye, as we saw in race 1. Joe Dorber now coming under the back of Oliver Hagstrom, Big Issues rear wing, down into turn 5. Going to want to try and make a move if he can. Sizes it up, thinks maybe I'll have it, maybe I won't, I'm not close enough. Big splitter load of curb there for Joe Dorber. Loses a big amount of ground to the back of the Swede ahead, and this allows Matt Stevens now to close back up. But Ted Edwards in the spooky Halloween pigeon livery, much better start for Ted this time, not so far down the order in P25. He's got Nicholas Nordqvist behind and everybody bunching up again. Ryan, this is going to be absolute crazy scenes. I hope Ted looks after that pigeon.
Yeah, this time the 195 not really being caught up in such a big calamity. He's kept it on the road and is still going on in P25, a little bit down the silver class, and that is, I think, it's at the 54th. Tonberg has had some issues, I believe, coming through.
Joe Dorber possibly in the yellow?
Yeah, no, in fact, actually it is. I think it's Joe Dorber.
So Joe Dorber getting caught up in a little bit of a mess there, finds himself a little bit out of sync possibly. We're about to see the timing boards update when of course they do come through. It could be the number 37 actually of our silver championship leader as it stands coming into this race. Ted Edwards across the line, and that is indeed, it is indeed the Hungarian driver of Dominic in the number 37. Obviously championship leader coming into Zolder, maybe not leaving Zolder, but we'll certainly cover that in the next race. Dario Barzaghi there coming under fire from Phil Roberts. Phil Roberts given as good as he gets there, making it very hard for Dario to have a comeback. The parakeet definitely putting up a fight on the side of that Ginetta.
Yeah, Phil keeping, at least I was right now, keeping Dario Barzaghi behind as it all runs. Still trying to, you know, find some space. And Manson throwing the car over the curbs, trying to get a little bit of an exit. He is so close to Daniel Jim ahead, trying to size up and move into the second chicane, just trying to get that tiny little run, you know, a little bit of a better run. You've got Tom Shipston behind as well that you also have to worry about, a driver who's had a much better start to this race, and we've been wanting to capitalize on that with our race 1. Necessarily didn't go exactly how they wanted it to do.
Yeah, definitely. It could be a night and day difference between race 1 and 2. It's how you learn from the mistakes as a driver. Christopher Streppen really fired up on the back of Adam Dubil. Benjamin Howman has managed to get past these guys and stretched himself 2 seconds to the good, Ryan. Benjamin with a massive lead. Dubil squeezing Verstappen down to the low line, trying to cover off the inside lines of the corner, moves to the right to obviously open up that corner, try and get a better run through. Verstappen's going to want to try and get the undercut if he can onto the next one, but no luck there. But does take the wider line, allows him to get the old switcheroo into turn 3 and 4 here, giving him the inside line on Adam Bill, and I think Verstappen's done this one.
Just about a coat of paint between the two cars, but Christoph Verstappen edges his way out of between the 840 of Adam Dubil. Now it's a straight run to Benjamin Harmon, but Adam Dubil says that he wants that position back. It is not over. 840 up the inside. The 7 has to take a big chunk of curb. That will compromise the exit, and it's still too wide coming down into the second chicane. Christoph Verstappen will end up with the inside for the first one, the outside for the next one. It's depending if the 840 can fire it up this part where he has the advantage. Still is side by side, and look who's being brought right into the battle. It's the 122 of Jimenez. Once again has been managing to read the traffic and just sort of sit back, let these two spin their wheels and catch right back up. Hard defense there by Christopher Streppen. You have to be right down to the inside of this point. It is the one pinch point of the circuit.
Yeah, pinch point it is very much so, Ryan, as we've seen on the opening laps. Definitely Constantina and up, but Jimenez reading the traffic very well indeed, and Dubil again on the defensive, but Verstappen's going to be looking in the mirror wondering why Dubil is sizing up moves from that far back, maybe not realizing that Jose Jimenez is you know, that close to the back of the 840 of Dubil, but Dubil soaking up the pressure on that lap with just over 18 minutes to go. We see a drive-through flick up for Ted Edwards. The Pigeon is going to have to take a trip down pit lane. I'm just going to go over and read the steward sheets to try and figure out why. Incident on lap 1, turn 4, involving the 195 and the 81. Drive-through for the 195. I believe that is the Ted Edwards car, Ryan, if I'm right in saying so. The 81 lifts to stay on track, but the 195 keeps the throttle pinned until it's too late, taking out the 81, so Stewart's frowning upon that one. Lap 1 at turn 4, involving the 100, the 6, the 24, and the 81. Stop-go 10 for car 81. Failure to hold brakes following incident, causing unsafe rejoin and a takeout of multiple cars. The 100 forced to take avoiding action, causing a takeout of the 6. An incident lap 1, turn 2, involving the 899 and the 203. Sundstrom, I believe, in the 899. Racing incident, minor contact. An incident lap 1, turn 10, involving the 741 and the 37. Again, deemed as racing incident, but everybody bunching up again, Ryan, as I look back to the pictures.
That's Grunstrom, and is that the Pink Panther car, or is that Wolf Matushka? I think that's the Pink Panther car that was off into the first chicane.
I believe it was, with the black end on the back end on the Pink Panther car versus Wolf's car, which has the all pink livery all the way around. So possibly some dramas, for the Pink Panther guys.
Everyone's still trying to find a little bit of space on the circuit. You can see Phil Roberts there just in the shot, trying to run away. The pack this far back has really not settled. Another battle that also hasn't settled. Bart Matcher still under fire from pro cars all around. That's Janyo up ahead in the 48, but he's also got Oliver Hagstrom Vigasu in the 811 right behind. Now this is not for any of the class positions, but obviously Hagstrom Vigasu will very much like this position, because then it's a straight shot to Janyo.
Yeah, certainly so. Clears Bart Matcher, and he's straight on the back of the next car in class, and the 373 finds itself down in P9 run. Something else has happened to Matt in that car, so going ever so backwards in race 2, complete polar opposite to race 1. Bart Matcher on the defensive from Hagstrom Vigasu. Vigasu looking to widen the corner, try and straighten up as much as he can, and a drive-through on the board, Ryan, for Wolf Matushka.
Oh, and that is really not going to that's really not going to help Wolf's day. A less than stellar race 1 ended up being turned into the wall. Race 2 has got a drive-through, and they're coming thick and fast now. A drive-through for the 77. That's Matt Stevens, as Oliver Hagstrom Vigasu ends up taking a big chunk of grass there, losing a lot of time to Bart Matcher, which will give at least 1 lap of breathing room.
Yeah, certainly going to keep my eye on the steward's box to see what comes through on those drive-throughs for Matt Stevens and Wolf Matushka. But these guys down the back end of the field, the pro guys looking very spicy indeed. Alvin Manson looking to try and gain on the silver guys. He's got 2 cars to clear. Dominic Fichetti in the 37 and Ethan Scott in the 34 before he catches the back of Spaniard Daniel Jim in the 71. So these silver guys, like we keep saying, are of no obligation to move out of the way. They can do whatever they feel as long as it's fair racing, and obviously no ridiculous moves are pulled. But Wolf Matushka looking very fired up on the back of Jimenez, looking to make a move, trying not to waste any ground at all. Although he's got a drive through, it's going to offset him quite a bit. Possibly Wolf going to be wanting to take this round as his drop one, Ryan.
Possibly so, but that's not stopped the Pink performance, getting the run out, and they're still side by side coming into the first chicane. And there you go. Adam Dubil has actually decided that oh, in fact, that's Jimenez. Sorry, Jimenez has decided that you just back off. You don't need to battle Wolf Matushka. You can let him run up the way, because he's still got to serve that drive through. It doesn't mean anything to you as long as you're not losing pace behind the driver. You've got to keep at least a little bit of a gap to Janyo behind. Then it's all well and good for their race.
Yeah, I'll be amazed if he could lose time behind a driver such as Wolf Matushka. Phil Roberts there on the grass looking to get past. I believe that was Mark Elgard in the pro category, wanting to follow Barzaghi all the way up the field. Phil Roberts, definitely big kind of Kevin-esque move there. Very reminiscent of the Nürburgring pass on the Manthey Porsche. But Phil definitely looks like he's on one, Ryan. I've never seen him so fired up.
Phil's sort of grabbed onto the back of Dario Barzaghi and is just using him to pull him along, despite, you know, the immense pressure behind from Elgaard. But you kind of want that. You kind of want the driver behind, because that Mark Elgaard at the minute is a is a buffer between all those silver class cars that is actually in Phil's race, and Phil will also be wanting to hold on to this to score some points, as you know, that disastrous accident that we saw in the first race took that car out of contention and no points were scored. So the 225 trying to grab any points that are left on the table. The best way to do it, to latch onto one of the fastest drivers and just let them pull you along.
Yeah, as we said earlier, not going to be losing any time behind Wolf Matuszka, and certainly none behind Dario Barzaghi either. So very smart racing there from Phil, as Bart Matcher again comes under fire in the chicane from Hagstrom and Vigashu. And Vigashu's read it, dived up the inside, and Matcher's had a little bit of a sideways moment and just been collected as Oliver has driven past. Very unfortunate indeed, but Bart does, I believe, keep the lead of Silver. Nat Shirley now the next car in contention for P2 for that kind of lower step of the podium, and the bottom step of the podium at the moment, Raphael Huel just behind. So Bart has now really got to get switched on, really got to dial that Ginetta in for the next 12, just over 12 minutes to pull that gap out and not come under fire from his rivals behind. But Daniel Jim with a lot of front end damage on that Ginetta. We see the bonnet slightly popped up in comparison to Christian Lindgren's car behind, so possibly running up the back, and Wolf Matuszka now fires his Ginetta into the pit lane. Wolf typically, Ryan, a driver that practices his pit entry quite a lot, but I mean, not really needing to in this race. Has he really done as much as he should? Going to be looking towards the pit exit to see where he comes out.
Yeah, well, obviously that car's going to lose a lot of time all the way down when everyone is still this close. It'll be another recovery drive for the 25 pink performance car. You see they're still in the pits as all of this group comes flying by. Christian Lindgren still on the back of Daniel Jim, really trying to put the pressure on, and Albert Manson as well, managing to get around. That's Wolf Matuszka, and getting around there's the 37, the silver championship leader. Won't mean anything for his championship, but yeah, just managing to gain another place. And speaking of the silver championship, as he says, for Bart Matcher, it's you know, that wobble wasn't necessarily a problem because of the positions lost, but it now has given him a direct line of sight between the 1 and the 404. Not necessarily the thing you want with only 10 minutes left. It now means that you can make no other mistakes.
Yeah, certainly Wolf has had his kind of grace mistake, not Wolf, sorry, Bart has had his kind of grace mistake, if you like, and allowed that free kind of little sideways moment to not really affect him. But Oliver Hagstrom Vigashu finds himself battling with the 373 now. Matt in the 373 totally switched off in race 2. Something has really kind of got to him in this event compared to race 1, where he seemed very cool, calm and collected. Jan Yo just ahead of them in the pro class, certainly making a lot more moves up into P5 and looking towards the back of Jimenez. But this man here, Marius, in the 373, sorry, coming under fire from Oliver Hagstrom Vigashu as we look back towards the rear wing. Say not close enough to make a move, but Joe Dorber again just in behind Oliver. So I mean, you let one car pass, you could end up seeing a flash of yellow up your inside as well.
Yeah, very much so, and also trying to, you know, catch on to the back of Jan Yo. So it's for the 373. This is their recovery drive. They had a great race 1. If they can minimise the damage in race 2, it will still mean that they're in, you know, a very good championship contention. Just because of what, you know, all the craziness that happened around them and happened to the other, you know, the other people in their championship dreams. If you can manage to get back up very close to that podium position, it's not going to be the worst day in the world for the 373. Could have been a perfect day, but this is as I'm sort of going to coin the phrase, this is the Ginetta Cup.
Indeed, there is no such thing as a perfect day, I believe, in the Ginetta Cup. There's always some kind of twist or turn to come along the way, but Maximilian Verde now finds himself very out of sync indeed, down in P24, fighting with the back of David Grunstrom, who is trying to find his way past Matthew Kingston-Lee, I believe, for what's that, P5, I believe, in silver. But again, Verde is going to be watching the back of this fight, just wishing he could squeeze on past these two and just kind of get a move on to try and catch the back of Elgaard, who is, of course, the next pro car in the line as David Grunstrom kind of goes defensive, then opens up the inside. Verde drives him towards the outside, and a little bump from Grunstrom behind allows him to go sideways, and this does open up the door to the car behind, the 203, I believe, of Herranz down into the last chicane. Herranz on the inside looking to make a position, but unfortunately cannot do so. And Mikael Sundström as well is just behind this fight. Another driver we were kind of expecting to see a lot more things from, especially in race 2. Had a great race 1, but again, just seems to have kind of flipped on its head in race 2. A lot of drivers going vice versa, having a good race 1 and an average race 2, or an average race 1 and a really good race 2.
That car is also carrying a lot of damage, so maybe something has happened to it. Oliver Hagstrom Vigasiu has decided that he would actually very much like P6 back from 373, or the pole sitter. Obviously had that tiny little mistake that I mentioned coming out onto the back straight. Dipped a wheel in the gravel, that puts you into the danger zone, puts you into the point where someone can have an attack on you. The 811 now retains P6. The 373 will have to do all that again. We're only with 7 minutes left to run. You're really starting to run out, and looking back down the field again, people still trying to make up, you know, moves here and there. Phil Roberts still on this charge. That's Nicholas Nordquist up ahead. He's going to send it up the inside of them, and thank you very much. The 137 is passed, and now Phil Roberts is up into 17th position.
That parakeet, Ryan, is definitely a para-yeet. I stand by that. The amount of moves that Phil Roberts is making in race 2 is great to see. And Mark Elgaard now up the inside of our silver provisional championship leader. Doesn't, of course, gain any points, but does allow the door open for Tom Shipston to potentially follow him through. And who is behind Tom Shipston? None other than Matthew Kingston Lee, as Jesse says, the greatest name in sim racing. But Elgaard drives himself a little bit deep. That, of course, gives him that inside line for the second turn. But Tom Shipston now follows Mark Elgaard through, and this does not bode well for Mark. Any points that can be had, Tom Shipston will be capitalizing. Look to the back. Tom Shipston sizing up the inside. I don't think he's alongside enough as the Silver Boys battle up now. This is for provisional second place. Huell dips a wheel going into turn 4, runs himself out on the marbles, and Shirley takes to the inside. Much tighter line, much better run up to turn 5, and Huell with a 5-second penalty just needs to kind of stay on the back as much as he can of Shirley. Maybe not fight so much, just to try and drag himself into that safe zone, so when the 5 seconds does hit, it doesn't cost him any positions. But RPMS down at the bottom end of the field as well, Ryan. Not a very good race 2 for these boys either.
And RPMS have kind of found themselves to fight, and found one other fight. This is the 909 of Crimson having to dip back into the behind of Bayern. That's the 100. But once again, that little better run. You end up side by side. It's very interesting to see in the Ginettas. You can get a better run, you have better acceleration, and then you both run out of steam at the exact same moment. So we always end up in these moments where you're too wide. You think you've made the move, you've got the better exit, the position is yours, surely, but it just doesn't come to it. Maximilian Verdi going to try it once again, and that is Wolf Matuszka coming in like a rocket and slamming into the side. I think that is that was still the 203, was it not?
Yeah, the 203 of Herranz there, coming under fire from Wolf Matuszka. Herranz looking to size up the inside of Matuszka into the last chicane again, but Stewart's going to be watching the Matuszka car, especially after having a penalty applied. I've still got no clue on the Stewart's board as to what happened to Wolf. Actually, I think I do, I believe. Incident lap 1, turn 12, involving the 25, the 373, the 796. 15 seconds for the 25, which is, of course, Wolf Matuszka slightly outbrakes themselves, causing a takeout. The 796 and the 373, both positions returned, but no mention of the drive-through on the steward sheets as of yet, Ryan.
That could have been track limits. It is easy to get, especially in the second chicane. You cut just a little bit too much, especially when the marker cones have been, you know, well and truly knocked away, as they would have been in this race. And that is the 373 getting tangled up with. That is Shirley in the front. The silver class boys, Raphael Huell, will be, you know, kind of sitting there looking at this through the windscreen. Obviously, without 5 seconds, it's still not going to play out unless a big incident occurs. But, you know, you might just get a little bit further away from the cars behind. But, yeah, it's it's not impossible to get a drive through here for track limits. It's all as for Hagstrom Vigasio has ended up taking the alternate line through the final chicane, and that promotes Jan Yao up into that 5th place once again. A much better drive from the 48, but has still got 3 minutes to hang on to it. 3 minutes in this field must feel like 3 hours.
Yeah, 3 minutes in a field this competitive with this many high-level drivers as Andy Boardman gets very sideways indeed into turn 1. And I think I believe, Ryan, I cracked what this wrong side team name means. It means a lot of these European guys that are, of course, used to sitting on the left side of the car are now forced to sit on the right side of the car, which to them is wrong, but to us is right.
Yeah, a lot of people who say that this car is the wrong hand drive. Well, it is right because it is right-hand drive. And to all of those people who say that, I just say that if you're a Bentley driver, it's just business as usual to you. It's another day in the office, and that's why everyone should drive the Bentley.
Yeah, the Bentley would be good preparation for sitting on the right-hand side of the car, where, of course, is correct to sit, as Oliver Hagstrom Vigasio finally gets the move done on Jan Yo through the Villeneuve chicane towards the end of the lap. Joe Dorber still in the back, looking to make a gain. Of course, these boys are fighting for pro honours, of course, remarked by their whiteboard behind their number, as opposed to the grey board on the left side, nearly on pace. 811, of course, teaming up with Mikael Sundström, I believe, of course, racing under the nearly on pace banner as well. And what a terrifying sight, Ryan, for Halloween this is.
Well, we had to have the angle at least once in this broadcast, must we not? And considering Jan wasn't really in the first race, gotta have it in the second race. Looking back from the top on the spoiler cam from Oliver Hagstrom Vigasio, like I said, it must be terrifying. I think it could be quite a good scare tactic for the but for the driver in front. You just make them look in the mirror, thinking, "What is that?" and then they crash.
Yeah, I'm debating, Ryan. What is scarier, diffuser cam or roof cam?
Well, roof cam you can see more detail. Diffuser cam you might only just see the teeth, which is scary, but you won't see the veiny eyes as Maximilian Verde gets a big snap opposite lock and has to catch the car. Puts them back down into second place behind Matthew Kingston Lee, and that could have been a very hairy moment, but well held but for the virtual drivers by TX3 driver.
Yeah, certainly very well held indeed, Brian, by the number 89 driver. Could have ended a lot worse if he didn't catch it. You know, big Armco on the left-hand side. There's contact between Bayron and I believe, was that Bart Matcher I saw? Heavy lick into the wall for Bayron in the number 100. That is not Bart Matcher. That must have been David Grunstrom possibly in the Valvoline car. Very similarly coloured down at the back of the grid there, as we see an RPMS boy off into the grass. Who would that be? That would probably be Manso, I believe, and his teammate coming up as well, Crimson. But David Grunstrom, I believe, getting tangled up there with another Ginetta. Both cars nearly ending up tragically out of the race, but one eating the wall very, very hard indeed. And Verde now is back on Matthew Kingston lead, looks to the inside, bunching up as we see the 203 missing their brain point, running into the back of Kingston Lee, and that allows Maximilian Vade, the virtual drivers by TX3 car, to go through into P20. And now this, of course, excuse me,
John is dying. There's too much action. John has died, and there's just too much to call in this race. We've had it once again, John. It's the last lap. Everyone's heard it's the last lap through the radio in the car, and everyone's decided that that this is it. It's do or die. Joe Dorber is now well on the back of Jan Yo, and it's that this is the final time that these three might have a go at it. You've got Andy Boardman right behind, very, very the aggression that we saw in race 1 might come out. We've also got Bart Madger behind, and actually contact mid-air, jumping over the chicane.
Surprised we haven't seen a car jump over the top of another car yet, Ryan. We've seen a lot of curb action indeed, but again, a lot of drivers have just woken up and gone, oh, what have I done for the past 28 minutes? This appears to be the last lap. I'm gonna need to get a move on us. Andy Boardman right into the back of Joe Dorber's splitter. We see the 373 taking another space off, obviously, Nat Shirley, but no points to be gained there. Pro and silver car, but this man here, Benjamin Harmon, another wrong side driver, not used to driving on the right, is of course coming to the line to take the checker. One of the RPMS boys waiting up there, so he doesn't have to do another lap and Christoph Verstappen is your second man to cross the line. But this fight here coming into the last chicane looking very dicey indeed. Andy Boardman onto the back of Joe Dorber, but Matcha sitting waiting to make up some positions just for overall honours, if nothing else. But Oliver Hagstrom Vigashu takes your P5, Janyo P6, Joe Dorber 7, Andy Boardman 8. And this battle here still has not ended as two cars side by side ahead. Mikael Sundström, Danish on Swede of Mark Elgaard down into the last chicane. This is, of course, for pro honours. Elgaard with the inside. Sundström's going to try and drive deep around the outside, misses it, hits the grass, hits the gravel, takes the alternate line, and the virtual driver's TX3 car in between both of them splits the field to gain a couple more positions. Maximilian Verde, again, great read of the traffic there, Ryan. We see this time and time again. A lot of kind of forecasting is needed when in pack racing to see where you might find the next gap. And speaking of gaps, there was one there and it shut. The pigeon is in the wall, RPMS in the wall. I think that's one of the Nordquist brothers possibly in the wall as well with them. I mean, chaotic scenes. That's Matthias Bayron, sorry, and João Manso there, the last remaining car to cross the line. There was a gap there. The pigeon went for it on the broomstick and suddenly that gap closed, Ryan. That's absolutely, again, chaotic scenes right on the last lap.
Chaos on the line, and that will be once again the poor stewards will just be shaking their heads thinking, what are we going to do? The last time that I glanced over, they were up to lap 2, and that was 6 minutes left to go, and they've just confirmed us. The amount of incidents in race 2 is 76. So before the before we call it a day and before we say that is all, folks, can we please have a big hand to the poor stewards that have to do this race? The racing has been, it's been close. It's been very very feisty. But at the end of the day, someone has to sit down with the pen and paper and make sure people are doing it correctly.
Yeah, absolutely massive shout out to the stewards. I feel they don't get enough recognition sometimes for the job they do. 66 incidents in race 1, we were told by Tom Bryant, and in race 2, 76, 10 more than the first race. You kind of think everybody would, chill and calm down a little bit for the kind of, race 2 and think race 1 was a bit messy. We'll try and wind it back. But as you say, Ryan, completely no. 10 more incidents. So a big shout out to our stewards tonight. Daniel, Andreas, Connor, Jesse Lee, Martin, and Tom Bryant find themselves in the box having to judge everybody's sim racing moves. Big oofs in the chat from Ferox. A big GG to Stewie from Katrina. And of course, Rule Britannia shouts Ferox as well. It's great to have you all in the chat. And I mean, what epic scenes tonight, Ryan.
I was about to say, did you know that Stewie was in this race? That Benjamin Harmon was in the second race? I didn't. We didn't see him. I mean, the green flag dropped, and then that was it. Gone. So this is a Stewie getting the race 2 that that much would have preferred to go his way. Obviously, that spin in race 1 really cost that car, but managing to make the most of it in race 2 will still have a good bout of points hauls. And this is definitely going to be a thing that we can say as it's a saying that Jesse Lee has sometimes had, and one that we've not really had to say. All of the standings will have to be, after post-race penalties, and that will be definitely a thing that we'll have to read out next week, John, and see what the stewards will come of this. But I have a feeling they're going to be working a lot longer than they maybe intended this night. You're going to have to get a cup of tea out and continue on.
Yeah, certainly kettles on in the stewards' room at the moment. Everybody's going to be knuckling down to kind of put an end to race 2 and try and sort out who needs to go where in terms of penalties. But of course, next time out, we will be reviewing the championship standings. We'll be seeing who your biggest movers and biggest shakers are. Of course, with those taking their drop rounds as well, we'll be shuffling about up and down the order. But as of tonight, Ryan, obviously we are going to be drawing it to a close there. Quick message, of course, from our partners. As always, we had one earlier to fill a bit of time, but another one from AK Informatica for providing our server solutions here at RCI. However, they also do provide high-end hardware, peripherals, and accessories, including sim gear. So if you are in their market and they do ship out to you, be sure to check out their website. driver61.com. You can, of course, get 25% off your driver coaching by using our very own discount code in the description below, and head on over to driver61.com. And of course, lastly but not least, your Fanatec, your one-stop shop for the best sim racing equipment on the market. You can, of course, use our affiliate link in the description, and it won't cost you a penny, but it does, of course, help with our running costs here at RCI. And Ryan, I'm pretty speechless after all that. It's been great racing tonight. It's been very kind of touring car-esque, which we thought, obviously, bringing it to a shorter circuit such as Zandvoort. But next time out, we do find ourselves, of course, in the land down under at Mount Panorama, where the circuit is a lot longer, not so much wider in places, but it's going to provide some awesome racing as we go back to the 1 hour format for that race.
It might be longer, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the drivers aren't going to test the limits over the mountain to see how many Ginettas you can squeeze side by side coming over it, and then it's going to be a case of the late breakers. Who is going to break the latest into the chase, because you'll all be bashing off the rev limiter by then. What can you do at the end of the lap? You know what I mean? You're at the bottom of the mountain. You've got to make some form of move. You might not necessarily have time to make it over the top of the mountain, and then you hit the physical limit of the car. It's going to be an interesting one, so you'll have to tune in next week for that. But like you said, speechless, I think, has been the word of the day. So from me and John Dalton, because this is the only two of us here in the box, and obviously all of the stewards who we will take our hats off to right now, who bring everything alive in the back end, and all of the racers who've attended today. Thank you so much for watching, and we will hopefully see you at the next event.
Farewell.